Chapter 391. When Yunjian heard the familiar voice that she had not heard for a long time, she turned around abruptly and saw Mayor Gu's smiling, mature face. Yunjian nodded. Mayor Gu was pleasantly surprised to see Yunjian here. He glanced at Yunjian before an equally surprised voice rang out. "Uncle Gu!" This shout came from Chu Xiangnan. At this moment, Chu Xiangnan was looking at Mayor Gu in shock. He was already standing at the top of the stairs, looking at Mayor Gu with his head tilted sideways in surprise. Mayor Gu glanced at Yunjian before looking at Chu Xiangnan and the others behind Yunjian. He asked Yunjian, "Do you know each other?" "Yes." "Uncle Gu, what are you doing here today?" Chu Xiangnan nodded to indicate that he indeed knew Yunjian before he asked Mayor Gu a question. "I have a dinner appointment here, so I came over," Mayor Gu replied Chu Xiangnan in a friendly manner. Mayor Gu and Chu Xiangnan knew each other because Chu Xiangnan's father was Mayor Gu's sworn brother. "Xiangnan, I didn't expect you to know this little girl too." "Haha, I don't want to boast, but it's your good fortune to be able to hang out with this little girl." Mayor Gu praised him deeply the moment he opened his mouth. When they heard Mayor Gu praising this little girl, the group of people who were busy flattering Mayor Gu turned to look at them. "You flatter me." Yunjian was not shy in front of everyone. She merely narrowed her eyes slightly before she replied. "Little girl, I think you're here for dinner too, right? We still have an empty table here. If you don't mind, why don't you join us?" Mayor Gu looked at Yunjian and the others and invited them over. Sure. Come, let's join us." Before Yunjian and the others could say anything, Chu Xiangnan hurriedly pushed them over. Hence, the group of people gathered around a table of food and wine on the first floor and sat down one by one. It was actually a big boss who was treating Mayor Gu to this meal. Since the big boss had a favor to ask of him, Mayor Gu did not hold himself back and invited Yunjian and the rest of them on his own accord. There were over 20 tables of food on the first floor. The big boss had invited them to dinner today because his daughter had given birth to a 1-year-old son. Using this as an excuse, the big boss invited all his relatives to dinner. At the same time, he did not forget to use this opportunity to build connections and invite Mayor Gu as well. As all the people present were relatives of the big boss, some of the big boss relatives were unhappy with the sudden addition of Yunjian and the others at the same table. After Mayor Gu invited Yunjian and the others to the dinner, he was busy dealing with the toasts from the various people. Yunjian and the others sat around a table. The table next to them was filled with young boys and girls of the same age as Yunjian and the others. It was probably arranged by the adults on purpose for the children to sit around a table by themselves. Ever since Yunjian and the others sat down, the young boys and girls beside them kept sizing up Yunjian and the others and whispering to each other from time to time. Finally, a boy of about 17 or 18 years old at the next table stood up and walked over to Yunjian. "Hey, how old are you?" The boy walked over to Yunjian and spoke to her in an arrogant tone. Yunjian narrowed her eyes and ignored him. It was obvious that this boy was here to cause trouble. More importantly, she saw a familiar figure among the group of boys and girls at the table. It was a very familiar figure. Because she had met her for the first time after her rebirth, Yunjian still could not forget her. That person was Lin Mingyu. She was also the culprit who killed the original owner of this body. When Yunjian walked over just now, she had already felt a burning gaze staring at her. She pretended not to see it. However, she had already noticed that the burning gaze that was sizing her up was avoiding her, not wanting her to notice her. Chapter 392. The one hiding behind the group of teenagers was indeed Lin Mingyu, who had caused the death of the original owner of the body. The big boss who was treating them was actually Lin Mingyu's relative. Ever since Lin Mingyu was severely injured by Yunjian, she had asked her father to fire Yunjian but was slapped by her father instead because Yunjian had said something that made no sense. She then picked up a pen to stab Yunjian in a fit of madness, only to be kicked away and relapse from her injury. Even her boyfriend whom she had been longing for, Yuaning Jun, had broken up with her because of Yunjian. Lin Mingyu was utterly terrified of Yunjian. Later, Lin Mingyu was hospitalized again due to relapse from her injury. By the time she came back with the intention of taking revenge on Yunjian, Yunjian had already transferred to Longmen City. Today was Lin Mingyu's relative's wedding and the banquet was held in Longmen City's best hotel, so Lin Mingyu insisted on tagging along. Not long after she sat down, however, she saw Yunjian and her friends coming in as well. Panicking, she hid quickly, thinking that Yun Jian and the others would go up immediately. She did not expect to be stopped by Mayor Gu and arranged to sit beside her table. Lin Mengyu suddenly remembered that her companions sitting around her were all capable people. She had wanted to seek revenge from her relative, but Yun Jian happened to come knocking on her door. Was Yun Jian not courting death? Hence, Lin Mengyu quietly called for the boy just now and told him to strike up a conversation with Yun Jian. It would be best if he could seduce Yun Jian and ask her out. Then, she could get someone to beat her up. Lin Mengyu hid behind her friend and was thankful that Yun Jian did not notice her. Little did she know that Yun Jian had already noticed her. The boy who stood in front of Yun Jian and wanted to strike up a conversation with Yun Jian was called Zhou Yuhao. Zhou Yuhao walked closer to Yun Jian and realized that she was very beautiful, so he couldn't help but gasp. He had come over to strike up a conversation with Yun Jian purely because of Lin Mengyu's request. Now that he had a clear view of Yun Jian's face, however, he had other thoughts. However, Yun Jian ignored him. Zhou Yuhao pursed his lips and moved closer to Yun Jian. However, he was stopped by Chu Xiangnan. However, Zhou Yuhao was not annoyed. He looked at Yun Jian with a smile and continued to strike up a conversation. "Beauty, I don't mean any harm. I just want to take you out for a walk after dinner." It was obvious that Zhou Yuhao did not have good intentions when he tried to strike up a conversation with her. No. We're going to sing karaoke later." Chu Xiangnan stopped Zhou Yuhao from getting close to Yun Jian. He even helped Yun Jian to wave Zhou Yuhao away. F***ck. Who are you to her? Why do you care so much? Zhou Yuhao was stopped by Chu Xiangnan. He suddenly felt that he had lost face. Especially in front of so many people, he felt that he had lost face. Why do you care so much about me? Chu Xiangnan was also a rebellious young man. Although he had restrained himself after staying in the military training camp for so long, Chu Xiangnan stopped someone like Zhou Yuhao out of kindness for Yun Jian. Humph. Who are you to her? Why do you care so much? Do you know who I am? I'm already a black belt in Taekwondo. Do you want to fight with me? Zhou Yuhao pointed at Chu Xiangnan's nose and shouted loudly. This shout attracted the attention of the people around them. However, Zhou Yuhao was proud of himself for saying this. He even felt Yun Jian's attention on him. He raised his head even more proudly. It was as if he was saying, I know Taekwondo and I'm good at fighting. Ha! Chu Xiangnan also slammed the table and stood up. He was about to fight with Zhou Yuhao when Yun Jian suddenly pulled him from behind. Yun Jian, you? Chu Xiangnan, including Chu Ning and the others, looked at Yun Jian in surprise. They did not understand what she meant. However, Yun Jian pulled Chu Xiangnan and said to Zhou Yuhao, Okay, let's go for a walk after dinner. Zhou Yuhao heard this and laughed. He glared at Chu Xiangnan provocatively. Chapter 393. No way. Yun Jian, are you really going to go out with him later? What about the karaoke we agreed on? Chu Xiangnan saw that Yun Jian had really agreed to Zhou Yuhao's request, and he was momentarily stunned. Then he pursed his lips and asked Yun Jian. Of course it's true. I don't know how to sing anyway, so I won't go to karaoke. Yun Jian smiled. She narrowed her eyes, and the corners of her lips curled up slightly. Zhou Yuhao, who was sitting opposite her, couldn't help but be stunned by her beauty once again. At this moment, Yun Jian was quiet and beautiful. She looked like a natural beauty. Her slightly narrowed eyes gave people an indescribable feeling. Chu Xiangnan wanted to say more, but he suddenly paused. He suddenly remembered that when Yun Jian had dealt with Peter, she had also narrowed her eyes and curled her lips like this. Could it be that Yun Jian was? Chu Xiangnan suddenly thought of this, so he didn't say anything else. Everyone saw that Chu Xiangnan didn't say anything, so they pretended not to know anything. Lin Mengyu had been hiding behind her friends, and she was just out of Yun Jian's line of sight. When she heard that Yun Jian had agreed to Zhou Yuhao's request, her smile widened. After dinner, Mayor Gu walked over to bid farewell to Yun Jian. He laughed and asked Yun Jian to come back to his house as a guest next time. He even patted Chu Xiangnan's shoulder and asked him to bring Yun Jian to his house as a guest. After Mayor Gu left, Zhou Yuhao immediately walked over to Yun Jian and said, Pretty girl, you just promised to walk around with me. Let's go now? As he spoke, Zhou Yuhao even glared at Chu Xiangnan, as if showing off his charm. Tisk. Chu Xiongnan cursed Zhou Yuhao in his heart, but he was secretly cursing him in his heart, waiting to see Zhou Yuhao cry. Let's go. Yun Jian's hands were in the pockets of her long down jacket. She pursed her lips, narrowed her eyes, and curved her lips slightly. Hee, let's go, let's go. Zhou Yuhao gave Chu Xiongnan another provocative look before he followed Yun Jian's path. Watching Yun Jian and Zhou Yuhao leave from afar, Chu Xiongnan, Chu Ning, and the others even saw Zhou Yuhao reach out to grab Yun Jian's hand, but Yun Jian evaded him, not even letting him touch the corner of her clothes. F***ck. What's wrong with Yun Jian? Chu Xiongnan watched Yun Jian leave and couldn't help but complain. Shoo. Chu Ning suddenly placed her index finger on her lips. She wanted Chu Xiongnan to keep quiet. What's wrong? Chu Xiongnan was stunned. He didn't know what was going on. At this moment, another group of people suddenly came out of the hotel. This group of people was the group of young men and women of the same age who were sitting at the table beside them just now. After this group of people came out, they carefully chased after Yun Jian and Zhou Yuhao. Chapter 394. Zhou Yuhao. Lin Mingyu's hands trembled as she pointed at Zhou Yuhao, who was tied up, and screamed. Zhou Yuhao was tied up by Yun Jian. Zhou Yuhao was a black belt in Taekwondo. Other things aside, Zhou Yuhao's Taekwondo was at a whole new level. At the same time, he was also the strongest among Lin Mingyu's relatives. Zhou Yuhao's bones were strong since he was young. In addition, his family originally ran a martial arts school. Zhou Yuhao had been learning Taekwondo, Sanda, Judo, and so on from his father since he was young. He could be said to be invincible since he was young. Therefore, Zhou Yuhao's skills were naturally at a level where there was nothing to complain about. Especially among his peers, Zhou Yuhao had not met many opponents since he was young. Therefore, he was called the Taekwondo genius of the younger generation. Lin Mingyu obviously knew that Yun Jian had some skills. She had almost crippled herself with one kick. Therefore, Lin Mingyu let Zhou Yuhao deal with Yun Jian. It was all because of Zhou Yuhao's skills that he could suppress Yun Jian. After all, he was a black belt in the highest level of Taekwondo. However, she did not expect that just as Yun Jian and Zhou Yuhao stepped into the alley, they immediately followed behind. In such a short period of time, Zhou Yuhao was tied up by Yun Jian silently. There was not even the slightest sound of struggle. Therefore, Lin Mingyu and the others were shocked and panicked. Especially Lin Mingyu. She had seen Yun Jian's methods. Because of Yun Jian, she was bedridden for God knows how many days. Several of her ribs in her abdomen were broken. Ah! Lin Mingyu saw Yun Jian looking at her from the corner of her eyes. She saw Yun Jian's narrowed eyes. Her deep eyes seemed to carry a sharp blade. Lin Mingyu screamed on the spot. Fear and panic instantly covered her mind. Run! Run! Lin Mingyu's intuition told her that she had to run. She had to run away from Yun Jian. Therefore, Lin Mingyu suddenly turned around. She even wanted to abandon the group of friends behind her and run away first. You want to run? Do you think you can still escape? Yun Jian suddenly broke into a smile. Her evil smile was faintly revealed, but when everyone saw it, they couldn't help but panic. Lin Mingyu ran for a while. Yun Jian crossed her arms in front of her chest. She didn't chase after her. Lin Mingyu hadn't even taken 5 steps before she was surrounded by Chu Xiongnan and the other 5 who had caught up from behind in groups of 3. At this moment, Jiang Weiwei stopped Lin Mingyu. Jiang Weiwei held a dagger in her hand and pointed it at Lin Mingyu, forcing Lin Mingyu to retreat. Hee. Yun Jian crossed her arms as she looked at the pale faces of Lin Mingyu and the others. She lifted her leg and moved closer to Lin Mingyu. Yun Jian was not surprised by the arrival of Jiang Weiwei and the others. This was because when they were having dinner at the hotel, she had secretly sent a message to Chu Ning who was sitting on the other side of her. She had asked Chu Ning to lead the group and wait for Lin Mingyu and the others to follow her and Zhou Yuhao to surround them from both sides of the alley. What are you trying to do? Sob, sob, sob. At this moment, Lin Mingyu was forced to take a few steps back by Yun Jian's aura. However, she realized that her back was facing the sharp blade in Jiang Weiwei's hand. She was so frightened that she screamed and started to cry without caring about her image. Yun Jian was unmoved. She only tilted her head slightly and looked at Lin Mingyu and the others. The corners of her beautiful mouth were slightly raised. Chapter 395. You want to kill me? Lin Mingyu was dumbfounded when she heard that. Her whole body began to tremble. Yun Jian wanted to kill her. Yun Jian wanted to kill her? No. You can't kill me. What you're doing is against the law. It's against the law. Lin Mingyu shrieked. Her voice was very sharp, and her screams sounded like the squeals of a pig being slaughtered. Your voice is very loud. Unfortunately, this is the alley you found. There's no one around. Even if you scream yourself hoarse, no one will hear you, Yun Jian said with a chuckle as she flipped her hand and pulled out the butterfly knife that she had been carrying with her. Then, while Lin Mingyu and the others were panicking, Yun Jian took a step forward. She threw the butterfly knife away and placed the blade on Lin Mingyu's neck. I wonder how beautiful it would be to cut open a throat that can make such a loud scream. Yun Jian slid the blade of the butterfly knife left and right on Lin Mingyu's neck, but she didn't let the blade go deep into Lin Mingyu's throat. Ah! Lin Mingyu's scream became softer and softer. She felt the coldness of the blade of the butterfly knife in Yun Jian's hand. She instantly felt as if she was wandering around in a hopeless situation. Yun Jian's seemingly lifeless eyes that were akin to the king of hell seemed to be sketching something. At this moment, Yun Jian gave off the feeling that she was a fearless grim reaper. She didn't seem to be afraid of anything. She only existed to kill her. Lin Mingyu was walking on the edge of despair. It was her first time facing Yun Jian like this. Right now, Yun Jian was truly like the grim reaper who lured souls away from the underworld. I was wrong. Yun Jian, let me go. Let me go. I beg you. Sob, sob, sob. Lin Mingyu reached out and grabbed Yun Jian's wrist that was holding the butterfly knife. She was so scared that she slowly knelt down in front of Yun Jian. Let you go? Yun Jian raised her eyebrows. Her low voice sounded even more terrifying. Yes, let me go, I beg you, I'm sorry, I promise you. I shouldn't have treated you like that in the past. Yun Jian, please don't kill me on account that I didn't really do anything to you in the past. No. At this moment, Lin Mingyu had a premonition that if she persisted, Yun Jian's butterfly knife would really slice her neck. You didn't do anything to me back then? When Yun Jian heard this, she really wanted to laugh. The original owner had begged Lin Mingyu in the same way, begging her not to hit her, begging her not to bully her anymore. The original owner even swore to Lin Mingyu that she would not have anything to do with Lin Mingyu's boyfriend, Yuan Jun. But what about Lin Mingyu? She directly kicked the original owner unconscious, then punched and kicked her. In a moment of carelessness, he even kicked a vital point. In his despair, the original owner lost his will to live and died. No. Besides, I've already apologized to him. Yun Jian, I was wrong. Lin Mingyu's voice was almost hoarse from shouting. She was now extremely regretful and scared. The butterfly knife was still stuck to her throat, motionless. Listen, the previous Yun Jian is already dead. The Yun Jian standing in front of you now can take your life at any time. Yun Jian looked at Lin Mingyu's terrified expression and immediately laughed. Chu Xiongnan and the others took advantage of the time when Yun Jian was dealing with Lin Mingyu to beat up Lin Mingyu's other helpers. Without formal training, it was impossible to achieve that kind of agility and nimbleness. When Chu Xiongnan thought of Zhou Yuhao who was showing off in front of him, he walked over with an evil smile and tore off the rag covering Zhou Yuhao's mouth. Little guy, do you have anything to say before you die? Chu Xiongnan looked at Zhou Yuhao with a smile. Who are you guys? Zhou Yuhao lost his voice and shouted. Why are Yun Jian and the others so agile? They are like people from the military. Why? They are around the same age as me. Hey, let me tell you, we are special forces. Chu Xiongnan fiercely slapped Zhou Yuhao's head and said arrogantly. Then, Chu Xiongnan pointed at Yun Jian and continued to say to Zhou Yuhao, unfortunately, you provoked the most powerful one among us. She can kill 100 of you with one hand. Chapter 396. They were special forces. More importantly, Yun Jian was the strongest among them? Zhou Yuhao stared at Yun Jian and the others in a daze, fear and trepidation engulfing him. Special forces? Who were those people? They were people protected by the country. He couldn't move at all. And Yun Jian and the girls were so young. No matter how hard Zhou Yuhao thought, he couldn't imagine that they were special forces at such a young age. No, you're lying. Yunjian, how could you be special forces? When you were in Xinjiang town, you were just a student. How could you be special forces? Lin Mengyu wasn't even afraid of the butterfly knife in Yunjian's hand when she heard that. She looked at Yunjian in shock and cried out again. When Yuan Yingjun and Lin Mengyu were dating, Yuan Yingjun fell in love with the previous host and kept pestering her. This caused Lin Mengyu to think that the previous host had seduced her boyfriend and beat her up. Of course, before this, Lin Mengyu had investigated the previous host's background. The previous host's background was simple. Even if she was beaten to death, she didn't have anyone backing her up. Her mother was just a worker in a textile factory, and her father was a gambler. After knowing this, Lin Mengyu gathered the two girls and brought the previous host to the toilet to beat her up. Now that she was suddenly told that Yun Jian was a special forces member and the strongest one among them, how could Lin Mengyu believe it? No matter how much a person changed, it couldn't be that big, right? How is it not possible? F***K. Shut up, you bitch. Yun Jian, just give her a knife and see if she believes it or not. Chu Xiongnan slapped Zhou Yuhao's face harshly again. He turned to roar at Lin Mengyu, looking exactly like a ruffian. No. I believe. Lin Mengyu trembled when she heard that and quickly shouted. Whether you believe or not has nothing to do with me. All I want is your life. Yun Jian's lips curled into a smile. She twirled the butterfly knife in her hand before stabbing it into Lin Mengyu's head. No. Lin Mengyu saw the butterfly knife in Yun Jian's hand coming down on her head. She screamed and closed her eyes, all the cells in her body screaming in fear. Not only Lin Mengyu, but even Zhou Yuhao and the others had all closed their eyes. Lin Mengyu's other relatives were all squatting on the ground in fear. Their roars and begging for mercy resounded through the sky. Swish! Just as everyone watched in horror as the butterfly knife in Yun Jian's hand plunged toward Lin Mengyu's head, a loud shriek rang out. Yun Jian suddenly narrowed her eyes. Her fierce pupils contracted and then narrowed again. Even her pupils were emitting an unusual color. At the same time, Yun Jian suddenly retracted the butterfly knife in her hand. Just when Lin Mengyu thought that the knife was about to land in front of her, Yun Jian tossed it away abruptly, tossing it toward a visible pile of trash at the corner of the alley. Ping! Just as the butterfly knife was about to pierce through the pile of trash and fly to the back of the pile of trash, a pair of hands suddenly appeared. Everyone was dazzled. They saw a 16 or 17-year-old girl in black clothes suddenly stand up from behind the pile of trash. The girl in black clothes faced the butterfly knife. She dodged to the left and right and then did a somersault in the air. Other than Yun Jian, no one at the scene expected someone to be hiding there. They were all shocked. After the girl in black clothes stood up straight, she looked at Yun Jian. Her expression suddenly became surprised. She went forward and greeted Yun Jian respectfully. Lan Su greets the sorcerer goddess. The black-clothed girl's shout shocked everyone. Chapter 397. The black-clothed girl who called herself Lan Su made Yun Jian and the others frown. Lin Mengyu had escaped death. Her face paled, and her eyelids rolled back. She fainted. As for Zhou Yuhao and the others, they looked at Lan Su in shock and fear. As for Chu Xiongnan and the rest, they too had turned their gazes towards the girl in the black dress. What did she call Yun Jian? Sorcerer goddess? What was that? Lan Su, who had suddenly appeared, was dressed in black. Her plain clothes accentuated her tall and slender figure. She was a classic beauty with thin eyebrows, long eyelashes, big eyes, and fair skin. However, what was surprising wasn't Lan Su's appearance, but the fact that she was dressed in black. It was an ancient style, but the clothes she wore were different. The fabric on Lan Su's body was of the highest quality. Furthermore, her ancient black dress exposed her ankles. Chu Xiongnan looked at Lan Su in shock. At the same time, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. The moment she saw Lan Su, an image popped into her head. However, when she thought about it carefully, she realized that she had never seen Lan Su before. Yet, for some reason, she felt that this young girl who called herself Lan Su seemed to have met her before. Sorcerer goddess, don't you remember Lan Su? Seeing that Yun Jian didn't say anything, Lan Su took 2 steps towards Yun Jian. Her surprised expression was gradually replaced by disappointment. From the moment Lan Su appeared, she didn't even look at Chu Xiongnan and the others or Lin Mengyu, who was lying on the ground. Her pair of bright, beautiful eyes were fixed on Yun Jian. It was as if she was waiting for Yun Jian's answer. You! Yun Jian placed her hand on her forehead. She looked at Lan Su in front of her and paused. Then she looked at her and shook her head. Should I know you? Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She pursed her red lips and stared at Lan Su with her deep, playful eyes. Suddenly, she became vigilant. It wasn't that Yun Jian thought too much. Just now, Lan Su had been hiding behind a pile of trash. She discovered her in time and threw the butterfly knife at her. Lan Su had called her sorcerer goddess in a flash. Yun Jian had encountered this kind of familiar situation in her previous life. There were even assassins who used this method to attract her attention in order to hide their identity and assassinate her. It was Yun Jian's first time meeting this girl who called herself Lan Su. Even if she felt a sense of familiarity, she would not let her guard down. Yun Jian, when did you know such a beautiful girl? Why didn't you introduce her to me earlier? Hee. When Chu Xiongnan saw Lan Su, he was shocked by Lan Su's black clothes, her beautiful figure, and her beautiful face. He walked over and patted Yun Jian's shoulder. Chu Xiongnan used to be a typical hedonist, although he had restrained himself a little now. However, it was hard to change one's nature. Lan Su's appearance was completely different from Yun Jian's pure, clean, and exquisite face. Lan Su was tall and beautiful, while Yun Jian gave people a kind of pure and exquisite beauty. Yun Jian's beauty made people unable to take their eyes off her. Chu Xiongnan, are you stupid? Yun Jian already said that she doesn't know her. Chu Ning slapped Chu Xiongnan shoulder hard. She pouted and shouted unhappily when she saw Chu Xiongnan paying so much attention to other girls. Lan Su didn't even look at Chu Xiongnan. She kept her eyes on Yun Jian. Finally, she was silent for a moment and took out something from her arms. She said to Yun Jian, Sorcerer goddess, you don't remember me, but it's impossible that you don't recognize this. In this world, only you and the Lord Immortal can send it back. Yun Jian looked at the thing in Lan Su's hand and her eyes narrowed. The sandalwood box. Wasn't the sandalwood box already in Yulong mainland? Chapter 398. If Lan Su didn't have the sandalwood box, then Yun Jian would be more or less cautious. After all, the girl in front of her had an unknown background, and Yun Jian couldn't be sure that she wasn't an assassin sent to assassinate her. Assassins and secret agents nowadays were very good at hiding, and Yun Jian never lacked the necessary vigilance towards strangers. However, Lan Su took out the sandalwood box. The sandalwood box. Yun Jian naturally remembered that the sandalwood box was placed by Ce in the ancient tomb, at the opposite end of the stone cave that no one could pass through. It was a place that didn't belong to the real world. That place was called the Yulong continent, and it was a place that was completely different from the space they were living in now. Back then, there was only one entrance to the stone cave, and Yun Jian had experienced how powerful the mechanisms in that stone cave were. Normal people wouldn't be able to enter it. There were many people waiting for the stone door to open, but until now, no one had been able to wait for a year to enter through the stone door. Therefore, she could basically conclude that the girl in front of her, who called herself Lan Su, was from the Yulong continent. Back then, Ce had hidden the sandalwood box very well. If it wasn't someone from the Yulong continent, it would be impossible for them to discover the sandalwood box. Yun Jian pursed her red lips, but she couldn't help but look at the girl in front of her seriously. I'm stupid? I'm not stupid. Go away. Don't get in the way of me getting to know pretty girls. Chu Xiongnan didn't hear the source of Chu Ning's anger at all. He even flicked Chu Ning's head and shouted. Then, Chu Xiongnan took advantage of the moment when Yun Jian was still in a daze to run over to Lan Su. He grinned and said, Hey pretty girl, what sorcerer god monarch god? Chu Xiongnan was an expert at flirting with girls, especially when it came to pretty girls who were to his liking. He would always think of ways to strike up a conversation. Lu Shiyun and the others face-bombed. They were no longer surprised by Chu Xiongnan actions. Just as Chu Xiongnan wanted to slowly strike up a conversation with Lan Su glanced at Chu Xiongnan. She looked at Chu Xiongnan and said coldly, Kid, get out of my way. Lan Su actually called Chu Xiongnan a kid? When Lu Shiyun and the others heard this, they all laughed maniacally. Ha ha ha, kid. Chu Xiongnan, you're a kid. Did you hear that? She called you a kid. Chu's face, Lan Su's face, and Lan Su, Lon, S's. In the face of everyone's laughter, Yun Jian was unmoved. She pursed her lips and looked at Lan Su. The cheerful atmosphere between Chu Xiongnan and the others was a stark contrast to Yun Jian and Lan Su. Chu Xiongnan and the others quickly quieted down. Yun Jian, on the other hand, looked at Lan Su and finally said slowly, "Let's talk somewhere else." Since it was related to the sandalwood box, Yun Jian couldn't speak in front of Chu Xiongnan and the others and Lan Su. "What's the matter? You don't have to be so secretive, do you?" Chu Xiongnan shouted after hearing this. As soon as Chu Xiongnan finished speaking, Chu Ning gave him a headbutt. "You two go ahead. We'll stand here and wait for you." Lu Shiyun was smart, and he gestured to Yun Jian. "Okay." Yun Jian nodded, and then said, "If you can't wait, you guys can go first." After saying that, she called Lan Su to go with her to talk alone. Yun Jian chose a quiet coffee shop nearby. After ordering a cup of coffee, the two of them sat across from each other. Chapter 399. In the coffee shop, Lan Su's strange clothes attracted the attention of the people around her. However, most people's gazes only lingered on her for a short while before they moved on. Yun Jian asked Lan Su in a very soft voice. It was so soft that no one could hear her. When she asked, Yun Jian stretched out her hand and tapped her fingernails on the table twice. She pursed her lips and her eyes moved slightly. Her posture was extremely lazy. When Lan Su saw Yun Jian's behavior, she felt that she was very similar to the sorcerer goddess. Moreover, Lan Su found Yun Jian by following her scent. The reason why she hid behind the trash was to confirm whether Yun Jian was the sorcerer goddess of the Wu clan. At first, Lan Su wasn't sure. However, when Yun Jian discovered her movements and flew over with a butterfly knife, she was overjoyed when she narrowly dodged it. Lan Su's abilities were definitely strong. Not to mention the earth where humans lived, even in the Yulong mainland where there were many strong people, Lan Su's abilities were definitely one of the best. Since Yun Jian could discover her whereabouts, it meant that her abilities were definitely above hers. Yun Jian, who had the sorcerer goddess's scent and skills, was definitely the sorcerer goddess. Lan Su didn't say anything. Instead, she took out the sandalwood box and pushed it in front of Yun Jian. Then she said to Yun Jian, "Sorcerer goddess, this sandalwood box is your magical weapon." Lan Su's words stunned Yun Jian. Yun Jian pointed at herself. Then her red lips moved. She said in surprise, "The sandalwood box is mine?" "Yes. This is your item. Because of the words you left behind, the sorcerer clan has been waiting for you for thousands of years." Lan Su's tone became more and more excited. In the end, she actually stood up in excitement. Because Lan Su stood up excitedly, and because she was wearing an ancient costume, some of the customers in the coffee shop who were enjoying their tea turned their attention to her. Yun Jian hurriedly gestured for her to sit down. After Lan Su sat down, some of the people who were looking at Lan Su strangely turned back. "What words?" Yun Jian picked up the coffee and sniffed it. She blew on the coffee in enjoyment and took a sip. Lan Su had already calmed down. She looked at Yun Jian and said firmly, "I will definitely return after 1,000 years." From Lan Su, Yun Jian heard a lot of things that were completely different from what she usually knew. Lan Su said that she was the sorcerer goddess after their reincarnation. Lan Su said that she was the first guardian of the sorcerer god of Yulong continent's Wu clan. As for the existence of the sorcerer god, there was a very accurate saying. This was also an ancient prophecy that had been passed down since ancient times. The Wu clan. As long as the sorcerer god was alive, the sorcerer clan would be at peace forever. When the sorcerer god died, the sorcerer clan would be destroyed. Reality proved that after the sorcerer god left, the Wu clan gradually declined. From being the first clan of Yulong continent 1,000 years ago, they could not even maintain their status as a clan. However, none of the clansmen gave up waiting for the sorcerer god's return. This was because the sorcerer god had said that she would definitely return after 1,000 years. Everyone believed that the sorcerer god's return would be the time for the sorcerer clan to rise to its peak. Sorcerer god, thank you for leaving the crystal ball behind. You also left a statement that when the crystal ball breaks, it will be the time for you to return. Because of this, I was able to sense your return and find you. Lan Su explained everything in one breath. So you want to bring me to Yulong continent? Yun Jian raised her eyebrows and asked. Lan Su raised her eyebrows slightly. She nodded vigorously and said, "Of course. Only if you return with me will the sorcerer tribe have a chance to rise again." Chapter 400. Why? Lan Su was stunned. She shouted excitedly, but her face was filled with confusion and disappointment. "There's no reason. It's because I have my own life." Yun Jian placed the coffee on the table. She pursed her lips, and her eyes were filled with complicated emotions. Yulong Continent. The old man who had helped her in her previous life was also there. However, Yun Jian would not go there, at least not in the near future. Her family and all the people she cared about were there, so Yun Jian did not plan to leave. "Is that so?" Lan Su lowered her eyes in disappointment. After a while, she raised her head again and looked at Yun Jian with a determined gaze. "Sorcerer Goddess, whether you're willing to go back with me or not, please allow me to stay by your side. Lan Su doesn't want to leave you again." As the first guardian of the Sorcerer Goddess, Lan Su had finally found Yun Jian after much difficulty. Naturally, she was unwilling to leave. "It's up to you," Yun Jian said lazily. Then, she pushed the sandalwood box back to Lan Su. "Keep this for now." Yun Jian knew how eye-catching the sandalwood box was. Back then, her younger brother had been caught and lost his life because of the sandalwood box. Yun Jian did not want to take any more risks. Since Lan Su was from the Yulong continent, returning the sandalwood box to Lan Su was the best way to deal with this. "Also, if you want to stay by my side in the future, don't call me Sorcerer Goddess." Yun Jian grinned. Then, she smiled and revealed her white teeth to Lan Su. "My name is Yun Jian." Yes. Lan Su understood that Yun Jian allowed her to follow her. She smiled and nodded at Yun Jian. "Let's go." They must have waited for a long time. After the conversation, Yun Jian stood up. She paid the bill and left the cafe with Lan Su. They were naturally Lu Shiyun and the others. Yun Jian knew that Lu Shiyun and the others would not leave. As for why Yun Jian left Lan Su behind, this was probably due to his intuition. Lan Su from the Yulong continent gave Yun Jian a sense of déjà vu. However, Yun Jian could not describe this feeling. She just felt that it was familiar, and there was no sense of alienation. In addition, the sandalwood box that Lan Su had taken out earlier was enough to prove that she was from the Yulong continent. This could not be false. Moreover, a person's eyes could speak for themselves. Lan Su's eyes told her that she wasn't lying. After Lan Su and Yun Jian got up and left the coffee shop, they heard a child's naughty voice behind them. "Hey Mom, why is that big sister wearing such strange clothes?" The child's mother touched the child's head and lectured, "She's probably a lunatic. Baby, you can't learn from her in the future." By then, Yun Jian and Lan Su had left the cafe and were walking towards the alley. "Yun Jian, you're back? What should we do with these people?" Lu Shiyun and the others came up and asked Yun Jian. Lin Mingyu had fainted while Zhou Yuhao was still tied up and trembling. "Kill them and bury them." Yun Jian raised her eyebrow. "Ah no. We won't do it again. It's all Lin Mingyu's fault. She ordered us to do it. It's not my fault." The group panicked. Especially when Yun Jian really did stab Lin Mingyu in the head with a knife. She was a woman of her word, even though she did not hurt her in the end. Teach them a lesson. Lu Shiyun also noticed that Yun Jian did not really want to kill the group. He was smart enough to tell the rest of Team Monarch. In the end, it was Chu Xiongnan who came up with an idea. He went to buy a marker pen and drew a tortoise on everyone's back. He asked them to wear it when they went home, or else they would be taught a lesson. Chu Xiongnan method was a complete embarrassment to these people. Chapter 401. She believed that this lesson would be etched in her memory for the rest of her life. Yun Jian brought Lan Su to buy a few sets of modern clothes. Lan Su's black outfit that resembled an ancient costume was too eye-catching on the streets. There were not many actors in this era and movies were not as popular as they were now. After all, it was rare to see a television set at home in 1998, let alone a color TV. Back then, the average monthly income of a citizen was only a few hundred yuan. And a TV set would cost at least a few thousand yuan to buy. Some people had to save up their salary for about half a year before they could buy a color TV set. Of course, No one was dumb enough to save up their salary without eating or drinking for a few months just to buy a color TV. After all, food, shelter, and transportation were the most basic survival principles under the premise of enjoying entertainment. Therefore, Lan Su's get-up looked like a lunatic to others. Not many people would think of Lan Su as an actress. Great sorcerer goddess. Yunjian. Where am I staying tonight? Lan Su almost blurted out the words, Great sorcerer goddess, in a moment of carelessness. Since they were on the crowded street, Lan Su was quick to correct herself, so her words were choked in the cradle before she could utter them. Lan Su was older than Yun Jian, so she would not call Yun Jian Sister Jian. Moreover, Lan Su looked like she was only 16 or 17 years old, but she had lived for at least a few thousand years. Yun Jian knew this as well because Lan Su had admitted it herself. Lan Su had also told Yun Jian before that people in Yulong mainland could easily live up to a few thousand years as long as they cultivated. More importantly, there was a sacred spring in Yulong mainland. If humans used the sacred spring to wash away their impurities, they could cultivate like the people of Yulong mainland and live for more than a few thousand years. It was unfortunate that the sacred spring was long gone. Since tens of thousands of years ago, not a single human had stepped foot into the Yulong mainland. Yun Jian and Ce, as well as Ce's subordinates, Adam and Mo Sen, broke this record. I'll find someone to arrange a place for you. Yun Jian pursed her lips and said. After she finished speaking, she took out her phone and called Zhang Jifan's new phone. Beep, beep, beep. The phone rang 3 times. Zhang Jifan answered it on time. Hello, Sister Jian? Zhang Jifan's honest, middle-aged voice came from the phone. This thing could actually make a sound? Lan Su couldn't help but take a few more glances. In the Yulong continent, such high-tech products did not exist. However, Lan Su's tolerance was not bad. She had gradually accepted the new technology of the human world. She was just not used to it yet. Arrange a deluxe suite. It must be the best and most comfortable one. Stay there for the long term, Yun Jian said into the phone. Zhang Jifan, who was on the other end of the phone, was stunned before his voice came again. Okay, Sister Jian. Yun Jian hung up. Not long after that, the phone beeped with a message notification. Yun Jian looked up and saw that it was from Zhang Jifan. The address on it was the accommodation he had found. After Yun Jian arranged Lan Su's accommodation and settled her there, she went to Qing Yu's place. Qing Yu's residence was a complete suite with top-notch interior decoration. Qing Yu had saved up quite a lot of money after following Yun Jian all these years. Yun Jian was going to look for Qing Yu this time to tell her. 3 days later, she would return to the kosher mercenaries with her. Before this, Yun Jian had already contacted Snake. Lizard. 3 days later, she would return to the kosher mercenaries and eliminate them. Dong. Yun Jian had just knocked on Qing Yu's door when the door was pushed open. Unlocked? Yun Jian went in directly, but just as she opened the door, Yun Jian saw a familiar figure. On the sofa in the living room, Yun Yi was pinning Qing Yu down on the sofa with her elbow propped up, both of them in an extremely awkward position. Yun Jian was speechless. Chapter 402. More importantly, Yun Yi was currently pinning Qing Yu down on the sofa in a bashful manner. It was a scene that made one's imagination run wild. Ah! What are you doing? Get off me! Qing Yu's back was facing Yun Jian, so she did not notice Yun Jian. She must have been pinned down by Yun Yi just now, so she blushed in embarrassment and pushed Yun Yi away quickly. Yun Yi sprang up as well, not expecting himself to accidentally fall towards Qing Yu. He even accidentally fell on top of her. In spite of it, the scene was different in Yun Jian's eyes. Yun Jian squinted and took a closer look, thinking that her brother, Yun Yi, and Qing Yu did look like a married couple. Yun Yi stood up awkwardly from Qing Yu and glanced at the door, noticing that it was open from the corner of his eye. Once again, he fixed his eyes on the door, and his heart, which had always been calm since he was a child, almost jumped out of his chest in fright. Xiao Jian? Why are you here? Yun Yi thought about the awkwardness just now and how Yun Jian was looking at him and Qing Yu with her arms crossed. It looked like she had been standing there for quite some time. Yun Yi was so embarrassed that he almost had no face left. He ran a hand through his hair, his cheeks flushing red like 2 clouds. Gu, I'd like to ask why you're here. Yun Jian suddenly had the urge to tease Yun Yi. Looking at how flustered Yun Yi was, Yun Jian felt like she had never seen her brother like this before. Yun Jian suddenly recalled how Zhang Xiaofeng and her brother had come to her one morning to ask for Qin Yu's address after training them. She recalled how her brother was drugged by Chen Yubing and ended up lying on the same bed with Qin Yu out of the blue, hugging each other naked. Yun Jian's hand that was crossed over her chest suddenly stroked her chin. She narrowed her eyes at Yun Yi and Qin Yu with a subtle smile. Xiao Jian, it's not what you think. Huh. I really didn't do anything to her. Yun Yi ran his fingers through his hair and stuttered as he explained to Yun Jian. Gu, I didn't think too much. Yun Jian forbade herself from teasing Yun Yi. She chuckled and walked in to snatch Qin Yu's sofa to sit beside the latter, who had her head lowered and buried in her knees in embarrassment. Suddenly, Yun Jian stretched her hand, unable to resist teasing Qin Yu and peeking over to look at her. It was rare for her to be so expressive as she called out to Qin Yu with a giggle. Sister-in-law. The term sister-in-law sent a shiver down Qin Yu's spine. Slaying God, the top secret agent in the international ranking, the chief boss of kosher mercenaries, was calling her sister-in-law? Sister Jian, don't tease me. Qin Yu kept her head down. There was a smile on her lips, but her cheeks were flushed. All right, I'll stop teasing you guys. Yun Jian smiled and stood up to turn to look at Qin Yu, telling her, go back with me in 3 days. The destination was none other than the headquarters of kosher mercenaries. Yun Jian's words made Qin Yu's rosy smile fade as she nodded at Yun Jian. Go back where? Yun Yi was baffled. To travel. It's winter break now. I'm bringing my future sister-in-law out to have some fun, but I'm not bringing you, Gu. Yun Jian smiled at Yun Yi. Her smile was mesmerizing. Chapter 403. Qin Yu and Yun Yi, on the other hand, were blushing. Their rosy and fair faces were indescribable with words. It was only after Qin Yu made sure that Yun Jian had left that she snapped out of it and pushed Yun Yi, mumbling. Why did you do that to me just now? Sister Jian even saw it. Qin Yu shoved Yun Yi angrily and turned to face him with a pout, no longer watching the Calabash brothers on the TV. I just slipped. I didn't expect to fall on you, Yun Yi said awkwardly as he rubbed his nose, feeling a little bitter at the same time. Humph, I'm ignoring you. Go. I won't be able to face Sister Jian if she sees me again, Qin Yu said as she turned to give Yun Yi a light pat on his back. In spite of it, her tone sounded like a girl's whining to Yun Yi. Yun Yi's brow was raised to its peak while he squinted his eyes, looking extremely pleased. Especially when Yun Jian called Qin Yu sister-in-law just now, he felt like he was on cloud 9. It was inexplicably exhilarating. I'm leaving then. Yun Yi stood up with a smirk, a sly grin spreading across his face. When Yun Yi reached the door, he suddenly turned back to tell Qin Yu, who was ignoring him sulkily, I'm leaving. Tonight's dinner is in the stove. Remember to eat and tidy up the house. A girl's house can't be so messy. If I'm not here to tidy up for you next time, eat on time. Don't forget to eat because you're watching Calabash Brothers all day. As he spoke, Yun Yi pretended to leave. Yun Yi went to the door. He gave his silent permission for 3 seconds before Qin Yu's voice came from behind him. Wait, you're not coming anymore? Yun Yi's back was facing Qin Yu. He suddenly smirked and turned around, the smile vanishing instantly. Yun Yi looked at Qin Yu and said with a straight face, That's right, didn't you ask me to leave? Then I'll take my leave. Qin Yu pouted and looked at Yun Yi. She bit her lip and said to Yun Yi, Then you better not leave. He had been looking for her ever since Yun Yi tidied up her room that day. Qin Yu had been quietly accepting Yun Yi's kindness. Today, Yun Yi had prepared dinner for her and accompanied her to watch Calabash Brothers. She did not expect that he would slip and fall onto the sofa. Coincidentally, Yun Jian, who had suddenly come over, saw the scene. Yun Yi smirked at Qin Yu's words. He already knew this would happen. Yun Yi then walked over to Qin Yu. Yun Jian left Qin Yu's house and went home. It had been a few days since she last saw Ce, and she could not help missing him. In spite of it, he seemed to have returned to the organization because Adam and Mo-sen were nowhere to be seen. They had probably followed him back. Just as she got home, she saw Qin Yiru. Xiao Jian, you're back? Qin Yiru asked Yun Jian with a grim look. Yun Jian nodded and asked when she saw Qin Yiru's odd expression. Mom, what's wrong? Qin Yiru answered directly, Xiao Jian, Do you remember your best friend, Lu Fian, from Xinjiang town? Just now, I ran into a fellow villager from Xinjiang town when I was shopping at the market. I heard from her that something happened to your friend Lu Fian's family. When her father went to the school to help, he accidentally dropped a long pole from the third floor, and it stabbed a student to death. The student's parents sent her father to jail and forced Fian to drop out of school. They even said that if Fian dared to go back to school in the future, she would pay for her father's life and stab her to death too. Chapter 404. Qin Yiru's tone was laced with a deep sigh and helplessness. She had bumped into her hometown friend when she went to the market to buy groceries at night and chatted excitedly before her friend brought it up. In the end, he asked the poor girl who she was from Xinjiang town. He would not have known if he did not ask, but when he did, he was shocked. Her hometown friend told Qin Yiru right away that the poor girl who had suffered for nothing was called Lu Fian. Lu Fian. Qin Yiru was stunned when she heard it. Lu Fian was her daughter's best friend in Xinjiang town. Moreover, Lu Fian often came to her house to look for her daughter, Yun Jian. Qin Yiru and Lu Fian had met each other many times as well. Especially when Lu Fian treated him so politely. She was a very good girl. Qin Yiru panicked when she heard it. She was such a good girl. How could she have met with such a sinner? Considering Xiao Jian and Lu Fian's relationship, Qin Yiru had been frowning ever since she got home. Since Yun Jian asked, she told her directly. In spite of it, Qin Yiru knew that she could not help with such matters because she was not a high-ranking official. She could only shake her head and sigh. When Yun Jian first heard Qin Yiru's words, her eyelids twitched. The image of Lu Fian rebutting the teacher for her when she had just been reborn surfaced in Yun Jian's mind. There was also the encounter with the cobra in the park. The last thing the silly girl did in her panic was to block the cobra's attack for her. Later on, the girl promised her that they would enroll in the same high school together. Although Yun Jian had returned to Xinjiang town to visit Lu Fian, her stay was short. In spite of it, Lu Fian's figure lingered in her mind. Lu Fian was Yun Jian's first friend after her rebirth, so it meant a lot to her. Xiao Jian. Xiao Jian. Xiao Jian, what's wrong? Did you hear what Mom said to you? Qin Yiru waved her hand in front of Yun Jian's eyes. She thought that Yun Jian was stunned by the sudden news, so she quickly asked. Yun Jian snapped back to reality. She looked up at Qin Yiru and asked, Nothing. Mom, what did you just say? Xiao Jian, go back to the village tomorrow and check on Fian. Here's 2,000 yuan. Bring it to her too. I'm not capable. I can only help her a little. Qin Yiru pulled out a cowhide envelope out of nowhere and stuffed the bulging envelope into Yun Jian's hand. This 2,000 yuan was all of Qin Yiru's salary that she had saved up since she started working. Other than the meager living expenses that she had to spend, Qin Yiru had put almost all of her savings into this leather envelope. This was Qin Yiru's token of appreciation. Yun Jian nodded and accepted the envelope. Since Lu Fian's family was in such a big mess, Yun Jian had to go back no matter what. A friend that Yun Jian had set her mind on would never change. The next morning, Yun Jian boarded the bus back to Xinjiang town before the sun had even risen. She was carrying a simple backpack. This backpack was already a little shabby. Even the color of the backpack was the kind that couldn't be more faded after being washed. The cowhide envelope that Qin Yiru gave her was in the backpack. Chapter 405. Yun Jian had been to Lu Fian's house several times before. Lu Fian's family background was one of the best in Xinjiang town. Both of his parents were retired teachers, and every month, he received a decent amount of pension. Therefore, Lu Fian's house was beautifully decorated. At least compared to the houses in the village, it was one of the most outstanding houses. In the past, when Yun Jian came to Lu Fian's house, it was always clean and tidy. However, it was a mess outside the house now. Taking a closer look, Yun Jian saw many bright red words painted in red. They were scrawled on the walls around Lu Fian's house. A life for a life right and proper. You killed my son. Give me back my son's life. What kind of teachers are you? Go to hell. This originally white and unadorned outdoor wall was now covered by a pile of curses written in red. Even passers-by could tell that these words were written by the family's enemies. Yun Jian knew the details. She immediately understood that these words were written by the students' parents who were accidentally stabbed to death by Lu Fian's father. Yun Jian's eyes darkened. She carried her backpack and stood in front of Lu Fian's house. Reaching out, Yun Jian knocked on the door. No one answered. Yun Jian raised her hand again and knocked. "Young lady, you're here to look for this family, right?" An old lady's voice suddenly came from behind. Yun Jian turned around and saw an old lady in her 70s or 80s standing behind her. She was even holding a stove for warmth. Yun Jian nodded. She frowned, feeling slightly uneasy. "They've gone to the police station. Young lady, go to the police station and look for them." "Sigh, what a sin." After the old lady said that, she shook her head and sighed softly. She turned around and left with the stove. The old lady had only come over to remind Yun Jian out of kindness. With this reminder, Yun Jian immediately knew what was going on. Lu Fian and her mother could not sit still when Lu Fian's father was already locked up in Xinjiang Town's police station. It was reasonable for Lu Fian and her mother to go to the police station. Thankfully, Xinjiang Town's police station was not far from here. Yun Jian carried her backpack and walked there in no time. In the waiting room of the police station, Yun Jian saw Lu Fian and her mother. Lu Fian had lost a lot of weight. She looked pale and weak, and her hair was messy as if she hadn't combed it for days. She sat on the chair in the waiting room, staring at the floor in silence with her mother. It wasn't until Yun Jian came in front of LV Fian and showed her the shoes that LV Fian raised her head to take a look. Then she saw Yun Jian. "Xiao Jian." Lu Fian pressed her pale lips together and called out softly as tears streaked down her cheeks. Yun Jian walked over and hugged Lu Fian's frail body. She reached out and patted Lu Fian's back. This was the only way to comfort her. More tears flowed down Lu Fian's cheeks. Her mother, who stood beside her, was like a weeping doll, staring blankly at the floor without a sound. When Lu Fian recovered, Yun Jian helped her to a seat far away from her mother. Lu Fian then cried and told her about what she had been through these few days. Lu Fian's father was invited by the principal to help out in school that day. He was a retired teacher after all, and Lu Fian's father was getting on in years. Chapter 406. As the principal of the school that Lu Fian's father had been in for half his life was a distant relative of hers, Lu Fian's father was too embarrassed to reject and went. In the end, a tragedy happened. When Lu Fian's father was helping to move a long pole, he was accidentally bumped into by someone on the third floor. The pole slipped and he fell from the window on the third floor. A classmate happened to pass by downstairs, and the pole pierced through the classmate's head, killing him on the spot. The person who bumped into Lu Fian's father and caused the pole to fall from the third floor was a young teacher with the surname Su. When this teacher Su saw the incident, he refused to admit that he had bumped into Lu Fian's father. He even stood up and said that Lu Fian's father was careless and caused the tragedy. That distant relative, the principal of the school, was also unwilling to clarify the matter after seeing the incident. The result was that Lu Fian's father was to blame for all of this. Lu Fian also said that after the incident, Lu Fian's father was arrested and sent to the police station. The parent of the classmate who was killed had been making a fuss. That classmate's parent even held a kitchen knife and did not allow Lu Fian to go to school. He said that if Lu Fian dared to go to school, he would chop her to death for her father's debt. Therefore, Lu Fian had been staying at home for the past few days, looking haggard. When a person really needed help, those who could lend a helping hand were truly people worth befriending. Just then, a male police officer in uniform suddenly walked out of the police station. Lu Fian and her mother stood up. "This case hasn't been solved yet. Our chief said that you're not allowed to visit relatives. You should leave first." The male police officer waved at Lu Fian and her mother and turned to leave. "Police officer, I beg you. Help us, just let us take a look, just one look, okay?" Lu Fian's mother, who had been silent all this while, suddenly sprung up like a spring. She rushed forward and grabbed the male police officer's hand as she begged humbly. Go away, go away. I said no means no. Unless you get the higher-ups to sign off, you're not allowed to enter." The male police officer waved his hand impatiently. Lu Fian was anxious as she watched, tears streaming down her face. She and her mother had been waiting here for a long time. Ever since Lu Fian's father was sent to the police station, they had not seen him once. The reason given by the police station was that the case was not solved yet. As long as the higher-ups sign off, we can visit? Just as the male police officer impatiently pushed Lu's mother, Lu Fian's mother, a female voice was heard. The police officer was taken aback before he saw Yun Jian, who was making her way over slowly. Thinking that he was an honorable police officer, he looked up at Yun Jian with a lowered gaze and nodded. That's right, as long as the higher-ups give their approval. Yun Jian pressed her lips together and slid her backpack down, grabbing it in her palm. What are you doing? Comms. Loses. Of course. 2. S. It. Of. Of Lu. E. 2. With one look, he was instantly dumbfounded. Yun Jian's name and gender were written on the top of the document. Below it was a note, Advanced Special Forces Official Member. There was another note, Advanced Special Forces Highest Officer, personally issued by Gu Junjian. This document. The male police officer was dumbfounded. He looked at Yun Jian and was speechless, his teeth chattering. You're an Advanced Special Forces soldier? Officer GE's Advanced Special Forces soldier? That's the top force in the country. How old was she? She was actually a member of the Advanced Special Forces. The male police officer's jaw almost fell off. Chapter 407. Yun Jian had actually become an Advanced Special Forces soldier? When did she become an Advanced Special Forces soldier? Lu Fian was dumbfounded. Even Lu Fian's mother, who had been in a daze all this while, lifted her eyes and looked at Yun Jian in shock. The male police officer was dumbfounded. His hand that was holding the ID trembled as if he had seen something incredible. Other things aside, Yun Jian's document was definitely not forged. More importantly, Gu Yunjian's Advanced Special Forces was the top force in the country. Moreover, all members of the Advanced Special Forces had special privileges in Country Z. With the document personally stamped by Gu Junjian, it meant that Yun Jian's status was much higher than that of the male police officer's position in the police station. At the same time, as long as the Advanced Special Forces soldiers had this document, they could be considered as having been sent by their superiors to carry out missions. In other words, no matter where the Advanced Special Forces soldiers went to in Country Z, as long as they were in Country Z, they had the right to get the local police station to cooperate with them. Yun Jian had such special privileges. This was also one of the main reasons why Yun Jian had joined the Advanced Special Forces back then. This document was given to Yun Jian by Gu Junjian not long after she and the others had completed their first mission. The male police officer had gone from being arrogant earlier to trembling slightly now. His gaze towards Yun Jian had changed. Changing his arrogant attitude from earlier when he thought he was a police officer, the male police officer took 2 steps towards Yun Jian. He suddenly flashed a smile as if he was flattering his superior and returned Yun Jian's document to her. So now, can we allow them to visit their relatives? Yun Jian took her document back from the male police officer's hand and smiled. The male police officer quickly nodded like a rattledrum. His attitude had changed a little too quickly. He even pointed at the prison beside them and said, "Please, please, I'll bring you there now." The change in the policeman's attitude shocked Lu Fian and her mother. Ever since Lu Fian's father was arrested, Lu Fian and her mother had been coming to the police station every day to plead with them to let them see Lu Fian's father. However, the people at the police station did not allow it. They even used the reason that Father Lu was a murderer and said that they were not allowed to visit before the case was solved. This cycle had been going on for a long time. Just as Lu Fian and her mother were about to give up hope that the police would allow them to visit Father Lu, Yun Jian appeared. Moreover, Yun Jian merely took out a certificate and the male police officer immediately changed his attitude. He did not even ask the chief and directly brought them to visit Father Lu. This piece of news was undoubtedly the best news that Lu Fian and her mother had heard since the incident. "Xiao Jian, thank you. Thank you." Lu Fian looked at Yun Jian with tears in her eyes. She hugged Yun Jian again and thanked her gratefully. "Go on, I'll wait for you outside." Yun Jian patted Lu Fian's back and told her softly, "Amen." Lu Fian nodded fervently and held her mother's hand to follow the male police officer to the prison. Yun Jian did not follow them in. She stood outside and waited for a while. About an hour later, she saw Lu Fian helping her mother out with tears streaming down her face. "Have you seen him?" Yun Jian asked Lu Fian, looking at her mother who was in tears. One of them was an old man who looked to be in his 60s or 70s. He was smashing the door with a hoe. He was cursing and yelling in a mournful manner. My grandchildren, my pitiful grandchildren, get the hell out here. Get out here. What kind of retired teacher is this? You killed my grandson, so I'll make your daughter pay with her life. From the old man's words, Yunjian could tell that he was probably the grandfather of the student that Father Lu had accidentally stabbed to death. Chapter 409. In reality, Yunjian's guess was right. This old man with a hoe and a group of people was the grandfather of the student who was stabbed to death by Father Lu. The reason why Mother Lu was so flustered was because of this old man's rudeness. The innocent student was called Zhang Qin. He was a 12-year-old boy and was a 5th grader. With regards to Zhang Qin's death, Father Lu was dispirited. Father Lu had always been on the right path and had never taken the wrong path. Even after being a teacher for his whole life, he was still humble. Father Lu would be condemned by his conscience for the rest of his life for accidentally killing a student in school. On the other hand, Zhang Qin's grandfather was a farmer without any culture. After Zhang Qin's death, Father Lu's grandfather turned the wrongful death of Father Lu into hatred. Even when Lu Fian was still in school, Father Lu had wanted to chop her to death with a hoe. According to Father Lu had killed his grandson. A life for a life. And Father Lu had insisted on killing Lu Fian. Father Lu had been crying and scolding in front of the Lu family's house every day. After the winter break, Lu Fian did not dare to go out. Other than going to the police station to beg the police to visit Father Lu Fian did not dare to go out. Because the moment she went out, Father Lu would bring a group of people to kill her. There was once when Lu Fian was a step slower and would have been stabbed in the stomach by Father Lu. That time, Lu Fian's down jacket was torn apart, revealing a huge hole. It wasn't that Lu Fian didn't know how to protect herself, but when she complained to the police about Zhang Qin's grandfather's behavior of transferring his hatred to her, the reason given by the police was that Lu Fian had to show evidence. There was no reason to talk nonsense. Lu Fian and Lu Fian's mother also felt that the police officers were most likely bribed by Zhang Qin's father. Now, even if they called for help, there was no one to help them. But who told them to have no power or influence? They could only hide as much as they could. Mom, let's go. When Lu Fian heard that, she hurriedly grabbed Mother Lu and Yunjian with her other hand and wanted to hide. All of this happened in a split second. When Lu Fian's mother and Lu Fian's conversation ended, they had already run to the corner to hide. At the entrance of the Lu residence, someone from Zhang Qin's grandfather's group had already noticed Yunjian and the other two. There they are. Someone shouted. Zhang Qin's grandfather immediately turned around. He furrowed his brows fiercely and rushed over with a hoe in his hand. Zhang Qin's grandfather was an authentic farmer. Because he was uneducated and didn't know the law, and because Zhang Qin's grandfather had lived in his youth, he had always relied on himself to solve problems. His own grandson had been killed, and Zhang Qin's old-fashioned way of thinking told him that he had to kill the other party's daughter to avenge his grandson. Momentarily blinded by hatred, Zhang Qin's grandfather raised his hoe and charged towards Lu Fian and her mother. His speed was abnormally fast. You deserve to die. Damn it. Ah. Zhang Qin's grandfather completely ignored him and rushed over with a group of people. Most of these people were uncultured villagers like Zhang Qin's grandfather. They did not know that every injustice had its perpetrator and every debt had its debtor. They also did not know that such things were handled by the law and the police. Run, the two of you run. Mother Lu saw that it was too late. She pushed Lu Fian and Yunjian, wanting to use her body to block Zhang Qin's grandfather who was rushing over. Chapter 410. Seeing that Zhang Qin's grandfather was about to reach them with a hoe, Yunjian's mother pushed Lu Fian and Yunjian. Yunjian narrowed her eyes. Combining everything that had happened before, including Lu Fian's explanation to her, she could already guess the current situation. Yunjian's mother did not forget to push her away when she pushed Lu Fian away. Yunjian's eyes lit up, not expecting her mother to defend her as well. In spite of it, Lu Fian's behavior was inherited from her parents. Mom! Lu Fian called out. At the same time, Yunjian had extended her arm. Just as Lu Fian's mother was about to push her and Lu Fian away, She flipped her hand and a pair of fair and clean hands coiled around Lu Fian's mother's wrist like a snake's body, pulling Lu Fian's mother to her side. At the same time, Yun Jian turned and stood where her mother was just now. Her position was the closest to Zhang Qin's grandfather, who was coming at them with a hoe. "Both of you leave." Yun Jian pressed her lips together, but her expression remained unchanged. "No, Xiao Jian, you. Child, leave quickly. This has nothing to do with you. You shouldn't be dragged into this." The former was Lu Fian's panicked voice while the latter was her mother's. In their panic, both of them had completely forgotten that Yun Jian had revealed her identity as an advanced special forces soldier. Lu Fian had also forgotten about Yun Jian's unusual skills when she was still in Xinjiang town. Right now, Lu Fian and her mother's biggest worry was that they would drag the innocent Yun Jian into the mess. In spite of it, it was because of Lu Fian and her mother's kindness that Yun Jian was willing to befriend them or help them with their problems. "Shoo!" Yun Jian suddenly put her hand to her lips and glanced at Lu Fian and her mother before pressing her lips together, a sharp glint flashing in her eyes. Lu Fian and her mother were stunned by Yun Jian's action. However, while he was stunned, Zhang Qin's grandfather had already led a group of people over with hoes in their hands. Crowds had started to gather around them. Some passers-by could not help stopping to watch the situation from afar. Some were panicking while others covered their mouths, unable to believe that they were witnessing someone hacking someone with a hoe. Everyone was afraid of what would happen next. Yun Jian, who stood at the front, would be hacked through by the hoe. In spite of it, no one left due to the anticipation of watching a show. Some of them had already covered their eyes, not daring to watch the situation. As Zhang Qin's grandfather cursed, he was overwhelmed by his impulsiveness and was about to chop Yun Jian with his hoe. Lu Fian and her mother wanted to rush over to block the attack on her mother's behalf to help her. Yun Jian's to her, in the next second, she was on the move to move. If someone asked how fast the speed was the speed, then they would tell you without hesitation that it was now. Raising her leg 180 degrees, she kicked the hoe in Zhang Qin's grandfather's hand that was at the front of the pack, causing him to fall to the ground. Then, Yun Jian used the same speed to weave between Zhang Qin's grandfather's helpers. Her speed was so fast that no one could keep their eyes on her. By the time Yun Jian passed through Zhang Qin's grandfather's helpers, they were all lying on the ground and the hoe in their hands was nowhere to be seen. This scene set off a huge wave in everyone's eyes. Chapter 4:11. Yun Jian did look a little young, especially with her frail frame. Zhang Qin's grandfather and his men were different. Although they looked a little older, the way they rushed over with their hoes was even more ferocious. They did not look like old men at all. However, the reality was the complete opposite. In the end, it was Yun Jian, this seemingly weak little girl, who kicked the hoes of Zhang Qin's grandfather and his men far away. Wherever Yun Jian went, Zhang Qin's grandfather and his men fell. Although there were no fatal injuries, she still managed to subdue them. At least, the scene of blood splattering on the spot did not happen. However, after Zhang Qin's grandfather and his men fell to the ground, they still felt the pain of being scraped. Lu Fian and her mother were dumbfounded. Even Lu Fian, who had seen Yun Jian's abilities, could not help but sigh. Yun Jian's abilities seemed to be even more shocking than before. Lu Fian's mother, on the other hand, was stunned. In her impression, Yun Jian had always been a gentle and weak little girl. When Yun Jian showed her ASF certificate at the police station, it was enough to shock her mother. Now, Lu Fian's mother was completely convinced. With such abilities, how did Yun Jian not look like an ASF soldier? "The police are here! The police are here!" Just then, someone in the crowd shouted. At that moment, Zhang Qin's grandfather and his men who were lying on the ground did not stand up again. Zhang Qin's grandfather kept cursing, but he could not stand up. Yun Jian pressed an acupoint on their cartilage. This acupoint was taught to her by the old man who had taught her hypnotism in her previous life. As long as she used her wrist strength to press on an acupoint, the person would only be able to move after at least 10 minutes. Of course, this method was only temporary. Upon hearing that the police had arrived, some of the people who had taken up positions around the area hurriedly made way for several male police officers in police uniforms who were rushing to the scene. Xinjiang town was not big, but it was not small either. It was not surprising that the police would immediately rush over when something happened. What's more, the matter had already blown up. There were more and more people gathering around, and there would be a few of them who would run to the nearby police station to complain. What happened? What happened? What's going on? He asked 3 questions in a row. A tall and thin policeman with a round face walked over with a few other policemen behind him. Coincidentally, when they arrived, they saw Yun Jian and Zhang Qin's grandfather lying on the ground. What are you doing? What are you doing? Little girls don't learn to be good and learn to cause trouble? Once the tall officer saw it, he led a few other officers to Yun Jian's side, talking as he walked. It was obvious that this tall policeman was the superior of these policemen. His position was slightly higher than theirs. Just as the tall policeman led the policeman towards Yun Jian, a male policeman beside the tall policeman saw Yun Jian's face clearly. The male policeman suddenly trembled. He tugged at the tall policeman and pointed at Yun Jian, shouting, She, what about her? The tall policeman asked in confusion. Chapter 4:12. This male officer was the one Yun Jian had met at the police station not too long ago. After Lu Fian and her mother had left the police station after visiting her father, the male officer could not help bragging to his colleagues in the station that he had seen an advanced special forces member. He had even exaggeratedly gestured with his finger. He had said that the advanced special forces member was a young girl who looked less than 18 years old. At that time, the tall policeman even ridiculed the male policeman with a contemptuous sentence. An underage member of the advanced special forces? Biffed. Do you think it's so easy to join the advanced special forces? Even if they're new, they're only candidates for the special forces after entering the training camp. Not everyone has the chance to become an advanced special forces member. After the tall officer had said that, he had even added proudly, My cousin is a special forces member. He's been in the special forces for more than 10 years, but he can't even cross the threshold of becoming an advanced special forces member. The tall officer had only said that to show off that he had a wider range of knowledge. At the same time, he wanted to express something. An underage member of the advanced special forces? Haha, he had to be kidding. The tall officer had even bragged to the other officers later on. Until someone had suddenly run to the police station to say that something had happened somewhere. That was why they had come here in such an aggressive manner. At first, the tall officer had really thought that the male officer was bluffing. It was only until he saw Yun Jian standing in front of Zhang Qin's grandfather and others who were beaten to the ground and exuded her natural regal aura that the tall officer sucked in a deep breath, thinking that what the male officer said just now was not impossible. As for what the male officer had said earlier, it had indeed shocked everyone present. Even though they did not know what the advanced special forces represented, everyone present had heard what the male officer had said earlier. However, everyone had clearly heard what the policeman had just said. The girl in front of them who had beaten up Zhang Qin's grandfather and the others was a special forces soldier. No wonder she was so powerful. With that thought, everyone was relieved and looked at Yun Jian as if they were looking at a powerhouse. Regardless of Yun Jian's identity, Yun Jian's ability had been displayed in front of them. This was an undeniable fact. Cough, cough, cough. Everyone, get up. Those who are causing trouble, follow me back to the police station. The tall policeman was not stupid. He saw that Yun Jian was indeed not simple, so he did not deliberately put on airs. Instead, he walked over and patted Zhang Qin's grandfather and the others who were lying on the ground with his baton. Sheriff, we can't get up. I don't know what that wretched girl did to us just now, but now we can't even move. Zhang Qin's grandfather's helper saw that the police had come, so he said very respectfully. Why can't you get up? Even if you can't get up, you still have to leave. The tall policeman wasn't polite to Zhang Qin's grandfather and the others. As he spoke, he turned around and instructed his men, Each of you carry one of them and go back to the station to make a statement. Since the tall policeman who was one level higher than them had already spoken, the group of male policemen had no choice but to walk over and carry her. Yun Jian, Lu Fian, and Lu Fian's mother also went to the police station. After Yun Jian and the other two finished their statements, Zhang Qin's grandfather and the others could move. However, in the police station, Zhang Qin's grandfather and the others did not do anything else. Moreover, they had seen Yun Jian's skills. Just as Yun Jian and the other two walked out of the recording room, they saw a man in his 40s, dressed in a suit and leather shoes, rushing in from outside. The man ran to Zhang Qin's grandfather and frowned. Dad, What's going on? Chapter 4:13. Zhang Jiming looked very depressed. His not-so-handsome face had sunk in. It was obvious that Zhang Qin's death had dealt a huge blow to Zhang Jiming's family. Zhang Qin's grandfather pointed at Yun Jian and said a bunch of things to Zhang Jiming. The three of them heard it clearly. What Zhang Qin's grandfather said was naturally a description of what had happened. However, Zhang Qin's grandfather exaggerated the details of how Yun Jian and the rest were beaten up. Zhang Jiming frowned. After listening to Zhang Qin's grandfather, his frown was so deep that it could squash a fly. Just as Zhang Jiming was about to walk over to Yun Jian, her mother suddenly let go of Lu Fian and Yun Jian's hands. She ran over to Zhang Jiming and knelt down with a thud. The tears on Zhang Jiming's mother's cheeks had yet to dry. She did not have the time to wipe the tears off her face. Instead, she moved her knees 2 steps closer to Zhang Jiming. I beg of you. I beg of you. This is my husband's fault. Please be magnanimous and stop bullying my daughter. She's innocent. She didn't do anything. If you want to kill her, come at me. I beg of you. Lu Fian's mother begged. Lu Fian's mother wasn't afraid of death, but she couldn't let her daughter live a life of fear where she could be hacked to death any time. People without power and status were always the weakest in society, because they couldn't get to know people who were better off than them. Yun Jian and Lu Fian didn't expect Lu Fian's mother to kneel down in front of Zhang Jiming. Mom, don't do this. Mom. Lu Fian shouted and rushed over. She squatted down and hugged Mother Lu, trying to pull her up. Lu Fian couldn't let her mother kneel down and beg for mercy. Your daughter is innocent, but isn't my son innocent too? Zhang Jiming looked at Lu Fian's mother coldly and kicked her away. He then looked at her and said, My son is only in primary school. He's still so young. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Mother Lu kept apologizing as tears filled her eyes. She was apologizing for her husband's mistake. Can I get my son back if you're sorry? Ha! Why can your daughter live well in this world, but my son is still so young, and he has to go to the Yellow Springs alone? Ah! Zhang Jiming's emotions were also stirred up. He even carried a thick aura of hostility, and his voice trembled as he spoke. That's why I'm going to kill you. I'll kill your entire family. Ha ha ha, I'll kill your entire family for my pitiful son. Zhang Jiming's emotions had reached a peak. Just when the group of people was in a hubbub and attracted the police once again, a clear sound was heard as the police tried to pacify the crowd but to no avail. Slap! A crisp sound rang out, and then it fell. Yun Jian had unknowingly stood in front of Zhang Jiming. Without saying a word, she ruthlessly slapped him. This slap thoroughly woke Zhang Jiming up. It also shocked the group of police, and made Lu Fian and her mother fall silent. For a moment, the surroundings were silent. Everyone could only hear the sound of breathing. At this moment, Yun Jian looked up. Her pair of sharp eyes were like a sharp sword, staring at Zhang Jiming. The young girl's voice was heard. Chapter 4:14. Yun Jian's words were like a baton to Zhang Jiming. He looked at Yun Jian blankly, opening his mouth but no words came out. As long as it involved his son, Zhang Jiming would become anxious. It's already happened. Do you think your son can come back to life just by using your little bit of power to stir up trouble? Yun Jian's words pierced right through Zhang Jiming's heart. However, she didn't stop there. Instead, she continued to speak in a tone that made people shudder. You're dreaming. How dare you say that? You. Zhang Qin's grandfather was enraged. He turned to look for his precious hoe to kill Yun Jian but was stopped by Zhang Jiming. Zhang Jiming looked at Yun Jian and seemed to have calmed down a little. He frowned and looked at Yun Jian. Continue. You're the one who stopped them from visiting. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and looked at Zhang Jiming. She pointed at Lu Fian and her mother. Not only Lu Fian and her mother, but even the group of police officers present were stunned on the spot. How did you know? Zhang Jiming was even more shocked. He exclaimed, not afraid that his actions would be exposed. The policemen were shocked. Other than Zhang Jiming and the people in the police station, no one else knew about this. How did this young lady know? Zhang Jiming quickly came back to his senses. He sneered and looked at Yun Jian, then at Lu Fian and her mother. So what if you know? Haha. Do you think you're the chief of the police station? Do you think you can stop me from doing this? Zhang Jiming's voice was filled with anger as he spoke arrogantly. Zhang Jiming did not know that Lu Fian and her mother had already gone in to visit her father. Moreover, he did not know Yun Jian's identity as an advanced special forces soldier. That was why he was so arrogant. B*****. How can our chief compare to her? The tall policeman had already believed that Yun Jian was an advanced special forces soldier. When he heard Zhang Jiming's words, he quickly stood up and scolded him. In fact, the tall policeman was afraid that Yun Jian would spread the news of him being bribed to Gu Junjian. Gu Junjian was a famous person in Z country. If the higher-ups investigated thoroughly, not to mention the money that Zhang Jiming had bribed them with, even all the policemen present would face the danger of losing their jobs. They couldn't afford to take this gamble. However, when Zhang Jiming heard the tall policeman's words, he felt that Yun Jian was inferior to the police chief. Oh, did you hear that? You can't even compare to the police chief. Zhang Jiming thought that the tall policeman was helping him to criticize Yun Jian. That was not all. Standing in the police station, in front of everyone, Zhang Jiming directly pointed his finger at Yun Jian. He raised his head high and continued, "My son was killed by you, so you have to pay with your lives. Do you know that power is greater than the sky? Even if I kill all of you today, you won't be able to find any excuses." These few words seemed to have dragged everyone in the police station down with them. It did not matter if it was anyone else, but Yun Jian was an advanced special forces soldier. And one of Gu Yunjian's. Chapter 4:15. Zhang Jiming, who was slapped hard by the tall officer, was stunned. What did he mean by she was an advanced special forces soldier? What did he mean by their station chief status could not be compared to hers? After the tall officer slapped Zhang Jiming with a grim face, he suddenly broke into a grin and walked to Yun Jian. He was spouting nonsense just now. Don't take it to heart. We, the police, will investigate this matter thoroughly and deal with it fairly and justly. Don't worry. The tall officer's words shocked everyone present. Especially Zhang Jiming. Zhang Jiming dared to say that because he had bribed most of the officers in Xinjiang town's police station. Zhang Jiming did not expect everything to change once Yun Jian appeared. Lu Fian and her mother were dumbfounded when they heard the tall officer's words. Listening to the tall policeman's words, it seemed that the police station was going to reopen the case. After all, the root cause of the incident was the school's principal who wanted to invite Lu Fian's father to the school for help. According to the law, the principal had to bear the corresponding legal responsibility as well. As for teacher Su, who knocked into Lu Fian's father and caused the bamboo pole to fall from the third floor, he was also the main person responsible for the incident. As long as the police station was willing to investigate the matter thoroughly, it meant that Lu Fian's father's sentence could be reduced. This news was probably the best outcome that Lu Fian and her mother could imagine for something like this to happen. After all, it was a fact that Lu Fian's father had accidentally killed someone. What? What about what you promised me? Zhang Jiming was dumbfounded. How much did he bribe the police station? The reason he gave the money back then was only to save his son from dying in vain. In the end, Yun Jian popped out of nowhere and ruined everything. Promise? What did we promise you? I'm warning you, if you or your father dare lay a hand on the mother and daughter again, the police station will arrest you. Even if the tall officer wanted to flatter Yun Jian, he was going to go all the way. You. Zhang Jiming glared at them and glared at Yun Jian, leaving Yun Jian with a message. I'll remember you. Humph. Don't let me see you in Longmen City next time or I'll make you suffer. He was the boss of a small business. He was still in the midst of negotiations and was so close to collaborating with new crews. To Zhang Jiming, Yun Jian was a child from a poor family. Zhang Jiming dared not make a fuss in the police station, so he left with his grandfather and the rest of them. In spite of that, Zhang Jiming thought Yun Jian's eyes. Of course, she did not care about that at all. When Yun Jian revealed her identity as an advanced special forces soldier, she wanted the police to seek justice for Father Lu. It was already noon when she came out of the police station again. Yun Jian finally entered the Lu family's house. In order to thank her, Mother Lu cooked a table full of dishes. It was only then that Yun Jian took out 10,000 yuan from her backpack and the envelope Qin Yiru gave her and passed it to her mother. Yun Jian's mother refused to accept it at first, saying that she was already grateful for Yun Jian's help. How could she accept Yun Jian's money? Moreover, it was 12,000 yuan. It was a sum of money even in modern times. What more in the 98s? However, the Lu family was definitely short of money after what had happened. In the end, Yun Jian said that the money was a loan to them and that Lu Fian could work for her when she grew up. Chapter 4:16. Yun Jian stayed in Xinjiang town for the entire morning and afternoon, returning to Longmen City after having lunch at Lu Fian's house. The police had decided to investigate Lu Fian's father's case, so it would not be as unfair as before. Before she left, she told Lu Fian and her mother to look for her in Longmen City if the police did not reinvestigate the matter as they had said or if Zhang Qin's grandfather acted like he did in the past. Yun Jian even gave them her current address. Lu Fian bade farewell to Yun Jian with tears in her eyes, reluctance and gratitude evident in her eyes. "You don't have to send me off. I'll visit your house during the Lunar New Year," Yun Jian said with a smile, patting the back of Lu Fian's hand. Lu Fian nodded. Lu Fian and her mother did not ask Yun Jian how she became an advanced special forces soldier. It was not that they did not care, but they knew how to respect Yun Jian's own thoughts. There were things that Yun Jian would say if she wanted to. It was already evening when they returned to Longmen City. Qin Yiru asked about the Lu family's recent situation in a concerned tone after she came back from work and Yun Jian told her everything. There were only Qin Yiru, Yun Jian, and Xiao Yunju at home during dinner. Yun Yi was out with her classmates, so she was not at home. She had been busy and was rarely at home. Ding dong. The doorbell rang. Qin Yiru stood up to open the door but was stopped by Yun Jian. "Mom. Continue eating. I'll go open the door." Yun Jian stood up and shoved her hands into her pockets to go to the door. Since no one opened the doorbell seemed to ring more urgently. The person outside the door seemed to be looking for something urgent. Yun Jian was already walking to the door. With a creak, Yun Jian stood at the door and opened it. Outside the door, a figure was anxiously pacing back and forth. Once the girl saw Yun Jian, she rushed to her and said hastily, "Sister Jian." "Not good. Boss was shot, and his life is in danger." This person was none other than Su Ziqian's subordinate, Duan Lei. Duan Lei was a steady person, but at this moment, he lost his sense of heaviness. Yun Jian immediately knew that something must have happened to the Su Ziqian that Duan Lei had mentioned. Although Yun Jian had taken over Dragon Head Gang and changed it to Falcon Hall, the gang members were used to calling her Sister Jian while Su Ziqian was still addressed as boss. Yun Jian never cared about these things. "Let's talk outside." Duan Lei's voice was very loud. Yun Jian was afraid that Qin Yiru, who was in the room, would hear him, so she turned around. In spite of it, Qin Yiru had already heard the commotion. She stood up and walked over, asking, "Xiao Jian, what's going on? Who's in danger?" Yun Jian had Duan Lei leave the house first before she turned to lie to Qin Yiru. "Mom, it's something in the military. I'll go take a look and see if I can help. Don't worry." After that, Yun Jian hurried out of the house after Qin Yiru agreed. Qin Yiru did not ask further when she heard that it was something in the military. After Yun Jian left the house, she went to Falcon Hall's headquarters side by side with Duan Lei. What exactly happened? Yun Jian went straight to the point. As they walked, Duan Lei explained, but his slightly panting voice sounded very anxious. Boss was having a meeting with the higher-ups in the gang when a sniper sniped him from afar. It was so close. Boss would have died on the spot. Chapter 4:17. Yun Jian knew that Duan Lei and the gang were Su Ziqian's buddies. Back then, it was Su Ziqian who had led them to establish Dragon Head Gang. Of course, their friendship was greater than the sky. Do you know who did it? Yun Jian pressed her lips together. She did not look flustered, merely walking briskly to Falcon Hall's headquarters with Duan Lei. "I have my suspicions but I'm not sure," Duan Lei said, calming down. Duan Lei had run over earlier but once he reached Yun Jian, he suppressed his fear. It was as if as long as Yun Jian was around, everything was not a problem and could be solved. "Who is it?" Yun Jian asked. Flying passage. Duanlei uttered those 3 words. Yunjian nodded slightly, a sharp glint flashing in her expressionless eyes. If she remembered correctly, Flying Passage was a gang in Taizhou City, the closest to Longmen City. Furthermore, the Sky Bridge Gang and Falcon Hall had been having a territorial dispute in recent days. There were many cities near Longmen City. Su Linbo, whom they met at the National Mafia Tea Party, was the mafia boss of Yuzhou City, which was near Longmen City. As for the recent dispute between Flying Passage and Falcon Hall, it originated from Flying Passage. For some reason, Flying Passage insisted that a downtown area in Longmen City was actually under Flying Passage's jurisdiction. Naturally, Falcon Hall would not give up their territory, which was clearly theirs. Hence, a conflict had arisen between them recently. Su Zetian had been shot by a sniper when he was having a meeting with the higher-ups today to discuss how to deal with Flying Passage. He was still in the emergency room, unconscious. Therefore, Duanlei guessed that it was Flying Passage who did it. With that in mind, Yunjian and Duanlei came to Falcon Hall's headquarters. According to Duanlei, they had hired a professional doctor to remove the bullet for Su Zetian. However, removing the bullet in Falcon Hall's headquarters was not as well equipped as a hospital, so the risk factor was much higher. There was a reason why Su Zetian had not gone to the hospital yet. Usually, gangsters would not go to the hospital for no reason. Especially someone like Su Zetian, who had been shot, couldn't go to the hospital. Because how could an ordinary person get shot? Moreover, Z country prohibited ordinary people from carrying firearms. Once discovered, they would be severely punished. If he sent Su Zetian to the hospital, he would probably be arrested soon. If a regular gangster was caught, he could still find someone to bail him out. Even the police station could turn a blind eye to it. But if they were discovered in the hospital, it would be troublesome. Therefore, when gangsters got shot, they would rather die than go to the hospital for the sake of their brothers in the gang. As they spoke, Yunjian and Duanlei arrived at Falcon Hall's headquarters. A row of higher-ups stood in the main hall of Falcon Hall's headquarters. At this moment, all of them had ashen faces, anxious. Sister Jen's here. At this moment, someone saw Yunjian and Duanlei walking in from outside the door. He seemed to have found support in an instant and shouted. Yunjian stepped in and glanced around before pressing her lips together and looking down at the crowd. Where's Su Zetian? Sister Jen. He's in the room. The doctor is still removing the bullet. The room can't be too stuffy in case boss's wound gets infected, so we can only stand outside and wait, one of the higher-ups told Yunjian hoarsely with swollen eyes. Chapter 4:18. Su Zetian was in the room now and the doctor was operating on him. When the doctor first saw Su Zetian's injury, he shook his head and sighed, "I'll do my best." It was because of this that the higher-ups present were teary-eyed. Waiting was the longest. It was especially so when they did not know if Su Zetian could be saved. After all, he had fainted the moment he was shot. If the doctor had not come in time, Su Zetian would not have made it in his condition. Yunjian shifted her gaze to the closed door of the room where Su Zetian was operating and strode toward it. Seeing that Yunjian was about to open the door, the higher-up who said that Su Zetian was in the room stopped her quickly. "Sister Jen, you can't go in. The doctor said that the air inside must be kept clean or it'll infect boss's wound." The higher-up spoke up out of concern for Su Zetian's injury. Yunjian understood. Before Yunjian could say anything, Duanlei's voice came from behind. "Sister Jen, we all know that you care about boss too, but all we can do now is wait. All of us hope that boss is safe and sound." As Duanlei spoke, his voice grew hoarser. In the end, one could hear a hint of sobbing in his voice. Su Zetian's subordinates were loyal and devoted. Su Zetian himself didn't treat them as subordinates, but as his own brothers. Today, something like this happened to Su Zetian. This group of fearless men, who had relied on brute force to develop the Dragon Head Gang to its current state, had their eyes red. They all lowered their heads, and no one spoke for a moment. Just as everyone was crestfallen and trembling in fear that bad news would come out of the room at any time, a melodious and light female voice rang out. "I know medicine." When they first heard the voice, their hearts skipped a beat. In less than 3 seconds, they looked up abruptly, their bright eyes looking straight at the girl standing at the front. Sister Jen knew medicine? They were stupefied. Yun Jian watched their reaction with a smile and flipped her hair before looking at the group with pressed lips. What? You don't believe me? Yun Jian's voice sounded like a warning bell in everyone's hearts. Everyone's eyes turned to Yun Jian, color returning to their eyes in the blink of an eye. Duanlei stood up immediately and nodded confidently, looking at Yun Jian. Sister Jian, we believe everything you say. Ever since Yun Jian's performance at the Mafia Tea Party had spread in the gang, everyone believed in one thing. Yun Jian was never one to speak empty words. Everything she said was reasonable. Looking at the sudden change in everyone's expression and the trust in their eyes, Yun Jian could not help feeling a jolt. She did not know when they had started trusting her. Duanlei, go in with me. Everyone else wait outside, Yun Jian told the rest after a glance at Duanlei. With that, she pushed the door open and entered the room without hesitation. Duanlei did not know why Yun Jian asked him to go in, but he followed her anyway. He closed the door after entering the room. Chapter 419. Inside the room. After Yun Jian and Duanlei entered the room, they saw a long flat table covered with white gauze. An unconscious person was lying on top of it. It was Su Zetian. The long table was obviously used as a temporary operating table. At that moment, countless surgical tools were placed beside the long table. A middle-aged man in a white coat was standing at the side, preparing for the operation. The operation had yet to begin. The middle-aged man in the white coat was called Su Zifan. Su Zifan was a doctor from a private hospital. His medical skills were quite good, and he would visit people to treat them. The former Dragon Head Gang, which was now Falcon Hall, would call Su Zifan whenever someone was injured. Therefore, Su Zifan could be considered half a private doctor of Falcon Hall. Seeing Yun Jian and Duanlei coming in from outside, Su Zifan frowned. His hand, which was disinfecting the surgical tools, paused for a moment. What are you doing here? Didn't I tell you to wait outside? No one is allowed to stand in the room. Otherwise, if the wound gets infected and something happens, I won't be responsible. Su Zifan frowned. He paused and said. Su Zifan had chased the group of high-ranking personnel out of the room to wait because of his words. Su Zifan did not know Yun Jian. Naturally, he did not know that she was the current boss of Falcon Hall. Get out of the way. I'll be the chief surgeon. Yun Jian explained her purpose in a simple and clear manner. She did not say anything else. You. Su Zifan was taken aback. It was only then that he took a second look at Yun Jian and was even more surprised. How old was this little girl? And she was the chief surgeon? Did she think that the operation was a joke? You're the chief surgeon? Have you studied medicine? Are you still in high school? Little girl. Su Zifan felt that he was the only doctor present, so his tone was rather arrogant. Moreover, Su Zifan's medical skills were indeed good. Many hospitals had offered him high salaries to work in their hospitals, but he had rejected them all. In addition, as long as it was a patient, they would naturally need his help. Su Zifan had never met any opponents, so he usually carried a sense of arrogance in his bones. Su Zifan, take a good look at who is standing in front of you. Be careful that I don't kill you for speaking rudely. Duanlei glared at Su Zifan and spoke viciously. Before this, Su Zifan was the only doctor here, so Duanlei would go easy on him. It was different now. Sister Jian knew medicine as well. Su Zifan was dumbfounded. He didn't expect Duanlei to speak to him in such a tone. After you, Sister Jian. Duanlei saw that Su Zifan had restrained himself and did not waste any more time. He turned to look at Yun Jian and said, Yun Jian walked over. Sister Jian. Could the person whom Duanlei, a high-ranking member of Falcon Hall, address as Sis be the young new boss of Falcon Hall that was rumored to be? Su Zifan was dumbfounded for a moment. Only then did he realize how much hatred his words had caused. His whole body shivered as he stood there. Su Zifan didn't even dare to move. She was the boss of Falcon Hall. It meant that it was not impossible for Yun Jian to kill Su Zifan on the spot in a fit of rage. While Su Zifan was still in a daze, Yun Jian had already come to the long table and put on the surgical gown and sterile gloves that Su Zifan had brought for her. You'll be my assistant. Yun Jian suddenly turned to look at Su Zifan. She did not blame him for his rudeness, nor did she say anything else. Not expecting Yun Jian to say that, Su Zifan was stunned again before he nodded. Oh. Chapter 420. While Su Zifan was still in a daze, Yun Jian had already walked to Su Zetian's side. Su Zifan's medical skills were indeed brilliant. The local disinfection of the area where Su Zetian was shot had already been arranged properly. Su Zetian was shot in the back, and the muzzle was near his heart. Fortunately, when the bullet entered his heart, his beating heart had just contracted, so the bullet did not directly penetrate his heart. At least for now, Su Zetian still had a chance to live. If Su Zetian died on the spot, then even Yun Jian would not be able to save him. Scalpel. Yun Jian extended her hand to where Su Zifan was. Ah! Su Zifan was dumbfounded. Scalpel. Yun Jian repeated patiently. In fact, if Su Zifan was not the only one present who knew medicine, Yun Jian would not have asked him to be her assistant. After all, this was a surgery near the heart. If she was not careful, Su Zetian would die on the spot. It was very risky to complete the surgery by herself, so in this case, Yun Jian had to choose Su Zifan as her temporary assistant. Su Zifan was still in a daze, but when Yun Jian called him, he handed over the scalpel. In fact, Su Zifan was still somewhat against Yun Jian performing the surgery. He always believed in his own judgment. This little girl. Could she really be the chief surgeon? As for why Su Zifan did not stop her, it was because he had already determined that Yun Jian was the boss of Falcon Hall. What a joke. How could he stop the boss of Falcon Hall from doing what she wanted to do? Unless he did not want his life anymore. When Yun Jian took the scalpel and reached for Su Zetian's wound, Su Zifan almost cried out in surprise. Who would perform surgery like this? If Yun Jian's scalpel cut the artery, Su Zetian would definitely die on the spot. In the end, Su Zifan could not help but shout out due to his doctor's ethics. No, if you cut the artery directly, it will lead to massive bleeding and death. Su Zifan widened his eyes at the same time. He saw Yun Jian's outstretched hand as if she was going to cut Su Zetian's pulse in the back. He was so scared that he screamed to stop her. Shut up! The girl did not turn around. Her mouth was covered by a mask, so her light and dignified voice came out from under the mask. Su Zifan shuddered. At this moment, Yun Jian had already used the scalpel to cut the artery. Hemostatic forceps. Yun Jian put down the scalpel and reached out her hand without turning her head. Su Zifan trembled as he placed the forceps in Yun Jian's hand. With nimble hands, Yun Jian stopped the blood from flowing out of Su Zetian's artery as quickly as she could. The following surgery, was not so difficult. However, Su's breathing gradually. Blood's Yun Jian's surgical method was different from that of a regular chief surgeon. Every time she made a cut, it was an Achilles heel, but she was always able to stitch it up in time. Su was. Su Zifan, on the other hand, was stupefied. His mouth was wide open, forming an O shape. He felt like he had seen Yun Jian's operation before. The surgery's done. He's fine now. They can come in for a visit, but don't get too close. Yun Jian turned to tell Duanlei, who was equally dumbfounded as she pulled her mask halfway down. Amen. Duanlei recovered from his shock after a long time and turned to open the door. Soon, the higher-ups outside came in. Boss is fine? That's great. Sister Jen is amazing. The group of people exclaimed as if they had breathed a sigh of relief. Hand of the Grim Reaper. At this moment, a gentle and weak voice was heard. The one who spoke was Su Zifan, who was so dumb that he had lost his intuition. What? Someone asked in surprise when the group noticed Su Zifan, who was standing not far away from Su Zetian. Chapter 421. Yun Jian was taken aback when she heard from others that she was given this title by people in the medical field when she was practicing medicine in her past life. Grim Reaper's Hand was the title she received when she disguised herself as a mature woman during a mission and approached an assassination mission. She was renowned in the medical field. She did not expect that someone in Country Z would recognize her disguise in her past life. Of course, Su Zifan did not recognize Yun Jian based on her appearance but Yun Jian's technique. When he was studying medicine in Country M, He was fortunate enough to watch the video recording of the woman known as Grim Reaper's hand surgery from his master. It was a miracle in the medical field. Su Zifen's words stunned everyone present, especially Duan Lei, who had witnessed Yun Jian's surgery. He was so emotional that he could not express it with words. Everyone was looking at Yun Jian with probing gazes, as if waiting for Yun Jian's reply. Yun Jian suddenly waved her hand and pressed her lips into a smile. It's purely a coincidence. The higher-ups did not doubt Yun Jian's words. Su Zifen, on the other hand, was frowning hard as he looked at Yun Jian, unable to calm himself down. Others might not know, but he had witnessed the surgery of the woman known as Grim Reaper's hand with his own eyes. If Yun Jian and the woman's surgical technique were to be 100% identical, then they were 90% similar. Other than their looks, Yun Jian and the woman were practically carved from the same mold. I'll leave Su Ziqian's post-surgery care to you, Yun Jian said after a brief moment of squinting at Su Zifen. Me. Su Zifen was taken aback. Yun Jian did not give Su Zifen a chance to reject as she turned to leave with a press of her lips. Sister Jian, where are you going? Duan Lei and the others could not help asking Yun Jian when they saw her leaving. Flying Passage dared to send a sniper to hurt my man. Of course, I should give them a big gift in return. As Yun Jian spoke, a sharp murderous glint flashed in her eyes. As expected, Sister Jian would not abandon Falcon Hall and leave them alone. Everyone was seething with resentment. Yun Jian's words made them lift their heads proudly. Yun Jian's action was telling them that everyone in Falcon Hall was a part of the organization. Those who bullied Falcon Hall were the ones who hurt her. Yun Jian was not going to let the matter rest. Sister Jian, I'll go with you. Knowing that Su Ziqian was out of danger, Duan Lei did not look after him and went to Yun Jian. At the same time, his eyes were red with anger. His eyes were no longer filled with tears, but instead, they were filled with anger and the fury of revenge. Sister Jian, we're going too. Me too. How dare Flying Passage lay a finger on our boss? We're going to bathe them in blood. Loud voices resounded throughout the place. Everyone had only one thought in mind, and that was to make Flying Passage pay the price. They were 100% sure that Su Ziqian's injury was Flying Passage's doing. No one is allowed to go. Yun Jian looked at the group and spoke with a press of her lips. Then she continued, but what she said was hot-blooded. It's just Flying Passage. I alone am enough to take it down. Yun Jian's brash and arrogant words sounded domineering to the ears of the others. No one thought that she was young and frivolous. Chapter 422. On the highway from Longmen City to Taizhou City, a fiery red Ferrari LaFerrari sped along. The red Ferrari overtook countless cars, pulling the distance to the maximum. The camera turned around and passed by the corner of a mirror. A delicate and pretty little face was reflected in the mirror. Yun Jian sat in the driver's seat of the Ferrari LaFerrari. She turned the car around and sped along the highway where there were fewer cars. There was only one destination for her: Taizhou City, flyover. She was the only one involved in this operation. Since she said that she alone was enough, Yun Jian did not allow anyone from Falcon Hall to follow her to Taizhou City. In addition, Su Ziqian still needed care. The success of the operation did not mean that Su Ziqian was out of danger. After all, the injury was near his heart and he had to be nursed carefully if he wanted to recover. To prevent snipers who saw that Su Ziqian was not dead and came back, Yun Jian sent Qingyu to patrol Falcon Hall more often. Qingyu might not be strong, but she had thousands of ways to kill her opponent when it came to assassination. Therefore, as long as Qingyu was guarding Falcon Hall, Su Ziqian and his men would be fine. Taizhou City. Flyover. A lavish and extravagant evening banquet was being held. The banquet was brightly lit all around. During this period of time, countless people came and went, expressing their goodwill one after another. It was a scene of harmony and joy. Somewhere in the banquet, a bald middle-aged man was holding a red wine glass in his right hand. He was chatting with a man of similar age who was only wearing a black unlined shirt and had a dragon tattoo near his collarbone. The bald middle-aged man was none other than the boss of Taizhou City's flyover. His name was Su Zhouzheng and people called him Third Master. Flyover was more powerful than the original Falcon Hall. In addition, Su Zhouzheng's flyover had always maintained its position as the second largest gang in the entire Zhe province. Therefore, his position was one of the best among all the gang bosses in Jia province. The man with the dragon tattoo on his collarbone who Su Zhoujing was talking to was the head of a firearms family, Yan Tianlei. Yan Tianlei's firearms family had no international reputation, but in Z country, he was a major firearms smuggler. Even Su Zhoujing, who was the second-largest gang in Jia province, could not help but feel respect for Yan Tianlei. It could be said that this banquet was held by Su Zhoujing to welcome Yan Tianlei. Brother Su, I heard that you've been in a territorial dispute with Longmen City over recently. I wonder if it's true? Yan Tianlei held his wine glass as he looked at Su Zhoujing with a grin. His face that did not look handsome looked even more menacing. That's right. Su Zhoujing nodded. As if he wanted to establish a good relationship with Yan Tianlei, he purposely leaned close to Yan Tianlei's ear and whispered, Brother Yan, you and I are old friends. There are some things I won't hide from you. Longmen City's Falcon Hall has a new boss now. I didn't go to the National Mafia Tea Party last time, but I've heard some things. But I just don't believe in this. What use can A? Other than spreading her legs to give birth, what can she do? I'll be honest with you. I've hired a sniper. If there's no accident, the current boss of Falcon Hall is probably dead by now. Just as Su Zhoujing finished his tirade, the tightly shut door of the banquet was kicked open from the outside. A young girl with a delicate and beautiful face wearing a long black down jacket walked in, attracting the attention of many people. Su Zhoujing and Yan Tianlei were shocked as well. Chapter 423. Yun Jian's appearance and her domineering and arrogant words attracted everyone's attention, including Su Zhoujing, who was called out, and Yan Tianlei, who was standing in front of Su Zhoujing and chatting with him. Everyone turned their attention to Yun Jian, who had just kicked the door open. Yun Jian's delicate face was delicately sculpted. She was dressed in a plain long black down jacket that wrapped around her impressive figure. It was not hard to imagine what kind of figure lay beneath the thick jacket. In spite of it, the most shocking thing was what Yun Jian said. Everyone knew that this banquet was hosted by the boss of Flying Bridge, Su Zhoujing, and that the host was Yan Tianlei, who came from an armaments family. And this young girl who had appeared out of nowhere dared to provoke the boss of Flying Bridge in front of everyone. Didn't her mother teach her that doing so would bring about a fatal disaster? Everyone was guessing Yun Jian's identity, but judging from Yun Jian's youthful appearance, everyone could only guess that she was a student in school. Other than that, there was nothing else. In spite of it, what Yun Jian said just now had truly stunned them. Su Zhoujing frowned maliciously. He reached out and ran his hand through his bald head, his lips curling into a sinister smile. Little girl, you're looking for me? Su Zhoujing was standing at a corner of the banquet. He was currently looking at Yun Jian from the corner of his eyes. When he saw Yun Jian's face, there was a hint of mockery in his eyes. Everyone in the circle knew that Su Zhoujing's tone had a hint of mockery in it. It was a sign that he was about to lose his temper. Hence, when the people around saw it, they were so scared that they hid a distance away. What a joke! Su Zhoujing was the boss of Taizhou City's black market. Who would dare offend him? However, just as the crowd was about to sit back and enjoy the show, thinking that Yun Jian would be done for daring to behave so atrociously in front of Su Zhoujing, the young girl's clear voice rang out again. You're the one I'm looking for. How dare Flying Bridge send a sniper to hurt Falcon Hall's men? I'm going to destroy Flying Bridge today. What frivolous words. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. In an instant, they turned their heads to look at Yun Jian. Everyone's eyes were filled with more thoughts. Could this girl be from Falcon Hall? It wasn't that the crowd didn't believe Yun Jian's words, but Yun Jian's age made it hard for them to believe. More importantly, if she claimed to be a member of Falcon Hall, why did she come alone? Thus, at that moment, everyone took Yun Jian's words to be a joke. What's more, she had shamelessly boasted that she was going to destroy Flying Passage. Just her alone? Puff. Are you kidding me? One had to know that the Sky Bridge Gang was the second largest gang in Jia province. Even the largest gang in Jia province would not be able to destroy the Sky Bridge Gang. Just by herself? To hell with it. F***CK, you little brat. Scram back to where you came from. Falcon Hall? Who does Falcon Hall think it is? Little girl, don't try to act cool for no reason. Do it again and I'll shoot you. Just then, one of Su Zhoujing's underlings swiftly whipped out a shiny pistol and pointed it at Yun Jian, threatening her. Seeing Su Zhoujing's underlings whipping out a pistol, the crowd shuddered. After all, everyone was afraid of guns from the bottom of their hearts. However, Yun Jian, who had a gun pointed at her head, did not bat an eyelid. She curled her lips slightly without anyone noticing, and a murderous glint flashed across her eyes. Isn't she Falcon Hall's new boss, Slaying Luo? I saw her at the National Mafia Tea Party. Just then, someone in the crowd suddenly pointed at Yun Jian and shouted in a trembling voice. Chapter 424. The person who spoke was the boss of a small gang. He did not have much authority, and there were only a few hundred people in his gang. However, he was fortunate enough to attend the National Mafia Tea Party. When Yun Jian appeared just now, the person felt a sense of familiarity. Originally, a small gang like his wasn't qualified to participate in the National Mafia Tea Party, but he relied on his connections to force his way in. He had only caught a few glimpses of Yun Jian from afar. He had found Yun Jian familiar when she appeared. He thought for a while and suddenly recalled. Wasn't she the boss of Falcon Hall, Slaying Luo? Her? Falcon Hall's new boss? She's the woman named Slaying Luo? Really? I heard that a mysterious man had annihilated the #1 gang in the northern region, the Green Tiger Gang, for Falcon Hall's boss, Slaying Luo. She's just a woman who relied on a man to get to where she is now. Not necessarily. She's not to be trifled with. Everyone present began to talk among themselves. Their words were filled with deep admiration for Yun Jian, but there were also some who snorted at her. No one had expected Falcon Hall's new boss, Slaying Luo, to be so young. Even Su Zhoujing and Yen Tianlei could not help but take a deep breath. When the Flying Passage members heard that Yun Jian was Falcon Hall's boss, Slaying Luo, they all ran over to surround Yun Jian. Given the current hostility between Flying Passage and Falcon Hall, the Flying Passage members would not hold back now that Yun Jian's identity had been exposed. You're Falcon Hall's boss, Slaying Luo? Su Zhoujing could not help but re-evaluate Yun Jian. He changed his tone and walked up to Yun Jian with a frown, but his attitude had changed drastically. However, due to the territorial dispute between Flying Passage and Falcon Hall, Su Zhoujing was not in a good mood even if he did not look at Yun Jian with that mocking gaze. She was surrounded by her brothers from Flying Passage. One of Su Zhoujing's men was even pointing a gun at her. However, she faced Su Zhoujing fearlessly and did not panic at all. Congratulations, you guessed right. Yun Jian's eyelids didn't even twitch as she said this directly. After a pause, she added coldly, unfortunately, there's no prize for guessing correctly. Su Zhoujing frowned. He suddenly looked at Yun Jian with disdain, as if he was looking at a dead person. He had been eyeing Falcon Hall's downtown area for a long time and had wanted to take it for himself, but Falcon Hall had refused to let go. Falcon Hall was ranked near the bottom among all the gangs in Jia province, and Flying Passage was the second largest gang in the province. Therefore, Su Zhoujing flew into a rage out of humiliation when he failed to take over. He sent a sniper to kill Falcon Hall's boss, and in the end, annihilated Falcon Hall. However, Su Zhoujing did not know that the sniper he sent had targeted the wrong person. Therefore, Su Zetian took a bullet for Yun Jian for nothing. Since you're here, don't think of leaving. Su Zhoujing suddenly smiled sinisterly. He clapped his hands and a sinister smile appeared on his face. Su Zhoujing had never believed in rumors. Especially after seeing Yun Jian in person, Su Zhoujing believed that she was just a woman who spread her legs and relied on men to get to where she was now. After Su Zhoujing clapped his hands, another group of people rushed out from the back of the banquet and surrounded Yun Jian in layers. When the crowd saw this, they did not even dare to make a sound. However, everyone only had one thought in mind. This woman named Luo Sha dared to challenge Flying Passage alone. She was done for. Chapter 425. Haha, wipe out Flying Passage? You think you can do it alone? Su Zhoujing laughed when he heard Yun Jian say she wanted to wipe out his gang for the second time. It was a mocking and contemptuous laugh. Clearly, Yun Jian had come alone and boasted that she wanted to wipe out Flying Passage. In the eyes of Su Zhoujing and everyone else present, it was unrealistic. Even the biggest gang in Jia province could not do anything to Flying Passage. She was just a little brat. Not only had she come alone, she even wanted to wipe out Flying Passage? That was more unbelievable than dinosaurs coming back to life. I alone am enough to wipe out Flying Passage. Yun Jian laughed just as arrogantly. However, Su Zhoujing was really pushed to the edge when he heard that. No one would be able to take it if someone continued to act so arrogantly in front of him. Moreover, Su Zhoujing was the boss of Taizhou City's black market. Su Zhoujing was truly enraged to be mocked by an underage girl in front of so many people. His sinister face contorted. His bald head coupled with his tightly furrowed brows made him look repulsive. Kill! Kill! Kill this bitch for me! Damn it! She has a death wish. How dare she behave so atrociously in my territory? Su Zhoujing pointed at Yun Jian and shouted at his men who had formed a circle around Yun Jian. Yes, sir. Su Zhoujing's men answered. Tisk, tsk, tsk. However, before Su Zhoujing's men could do anything to Yun Jian, they heard a series of noises. Thump, thump. Following the noises, Su Zhoujing's men felt a sharp pain in their knees. The next second, they were all kneeling on the ground. They had not attacked yet. A large number of them had already fallen. However, this group of Su Zhoujing's subordinates who were kneeling on the ground all had one thing in common. Their knees were pierced deeply by a very small blade, forcing everyone to kneel on the ground at the same time as if their legs were paralyzed or directly fell to the ground. When the blade pierced deep into their knees, excruciating pain spread throughout their bodies. Before Su Zhoujing's subordinates could make a move, they had all fallen to the ground and were howling in pain. This scene scared the hell out of everyone. Everyone saw that the blades that had pierced into the knees of Su Zhoujing's men had been shot out by Yun Jian. Ah! Boss, this blade is poisonous. We can't stand up. One of Su Zhoujing's men who had fallen down shouted desperately. They only felt that their bodies were weak. After being stabbed by the blades, they didn't even have the strength to stand up. What was going on? Everyone was terrified. Then, they all turned to look at Yun Jian. However, Yun Jian pursed her lips slightly and revealed a contemptuous smile in front of everyone. She even knew how to poison him. Moreover, the way he threw the blade was exactly the same as the assassins in the movies. Everyone looked at Yun Jian in horror, as if they had seen the Grim Reaper. No wonder she was so confident. The blades in her hands were laced with poison. Once they pierced someone, that person would instantly go limp and would not even have the strength to stand up. Yun Jian smirked when she saw that Su Zhoujing's men were already wailing and howling. These flying blades had been soaked in Qing Yu's poison. Once the blades grazed the body and came into contact with the blood in the body, the person would instantly go limp and would not even have the strength to stand up. This woman has a trick up her sleeve. Zhou Jie, shoot her. Quick. Kill her. Su Zhoujing shouted in horror. He quickly ordered the gun-wielding subordinate beside him, clearly shocked by Yun Jian's actions. Before he could finish, Yun Jian's leisurely voice rang out again. It's time for the game to end. Since Flying Passage dares to target Falcon Hall, you'll have to pay the price. Chapter 426. As he spoke, Yun Jian's figure had already flashed. Su Zhoujing's gun-wielding subordinate, Zhou Jie, listened to Su Zhoujing's words and quickly grabbed the pistol and aimed at Yun Jian again. But in the blink of an eye, where was Yun Jian? Gone? I'm here. Suddenly, the girl's light voice came from behind. Zhou Jie's heart tightened. He grabbed the pistol in horror and turned around, but just as he turned around, he heard a chi sound, and a blade had already pierced his leg. His body went soft in an instant, and Zhou Jie fell straight to the ground like a puddle of mud. Yun Jian's speed just now was so fast that it could not be captured by the naked eye. Everyone present was horrified, especially Su Zhoujing. He watched in horror as Yun Jian stabbed the blade into Zhou Jie's leg, and then Zhou Jie fell to the ground. The pistol in Zhou Jie's hand also slipped to the ground. You! Su Zhoujing's mouth was wide open. His shock at this time could no longer be described with words. Su Zhoujing's group of subordinates all fell to the ground at this time, and no one could still stand and look at Yun Jian. Even Yen Tianlei, who was born in a family of arms and was used to seeing the world, could not help but tremble at this time. This girl was not human at all. This kind of strength, this kind of skill. She was not like the woman in the rumors who relied on men to get to the top. What? Yun Jian continued to maintain her slightly restrained smile. She looked at Su Zhoujing, and the corner of her mouth was filled with a smile that made everyone present feel creepy. With a paw sound, Yun Jian did not look at the ground. She stretched out her foot and stomped forward, stepping on the pistol that Zhou Jie had just slid to the ground. With a sudden stomp, Yun Jian's foot was slightly stronger, and the pistol was hooked by Yun Jian's foot and bounced up. This jump happened to be at the height of Yun Jian's hanging hand. She only needed to reach forward and grab the handle of the pistol. At this moment, Yun Jian's actions were more like a demon from hell. Her movements were extremely smooth, as if she had practiced it countless times. Su Zhoujing couldn't help but tremble. He no longer dared to treat Yun Jian as an ordinary girl or a woman who relied on men to get to the top. He even began to regret treating Yun Jian as that kind of woman. At this moment, Yun Jian skillfully fiddled with the pistol. She fiddled with the pistol out of habit and pointed the muzzle at Su Zhoujing. How do you want to die? Yun Jian narrowed her eyes with a smile. Her words carried a frightening evil intent. Su Zhoujing, who witnessed Yun Jian snatching the gun and pointing the muzzle at him, trembled all over his body. He was so scared that his face turned pale. All of Su Zhoujing's men were defeated by Yun Jian. Although he had some martial arts, judging from Yun Jian's skills just now, his little bit of martial arts was not enough at all. However, Su Zhoujing was not a person who would wait for death. His face twisted and he quickly threatened, "You can't kill me. If you kill me, then my brother will definitely avenge me. Do you know who my brother is? He's a member of the Kosha mercenaries. If you kill me, you'll die." This was Su Zhoujing's trump card, and Su Zhoujing would only use this trump card when his life was threatened. However, after hearing Su Zhoujing's words, Yun Jian's hand paused. She drew an arc. Su Zhoujing actually has a brother who works for the Kosha mercenaries? The Kosha mercenaries were popular all over the world, so Yun Jian was not surprised that she could meet members of the Kosha mercenaries wherever she went. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.